arrested again?
Yo, what up, guys? We are live. So the debate that a lot of you guys have asked for, or I guess we can call it more of a discussion, is here between Destiny and TFM. So these are both guys who've been on this channel before many times. This debate actually wasn't my idea. This was Vikram. I think set it up initially. Then he asked me if I could host it on my channel. I was like, yeah, all right, sure. And then he asked me if I could moderate because he wasn't too familiar with TFM. So here we are. But yeah, are you familiar, Destiny? You're familiar with TFM's content at all?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. Do you want to just give a little introduction then, TFM?
Now let's just jump into it. Let's not even worry about that.
All
Probably the less you know about me, the better. We'll get derailed if we get down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So I think there's several disagreements you guys will definitely have. I mean, your whole, I think, big one is going to be politics. I think Destiny is going to disagree with pretty much most of your political takes, especially about feminism and women voting. So we can start off with that, or do you want to focus more on the MGTOW aspect?
It's whatever. It's fine. Now, like the problem is when it comes down to subjective value, we're not going to prove one or the other wrong. It's just a matter of personal values and that kind of thing. So we can talk about like the consequences of our values because, beliefs drive actions, actions lead to consequences, consequences are objective, but the values themselves aren't objective. So, we may disagree, but we can't really debate a subjective value.
I think you can have like an interesting discussion about it. Like, do you want to just like give a quick introduction, like where you stand on like feminism and just all that?
Okay. Well, so here's the thing. Authority and responsibility have to be connected. You can't separate authority from responsibility. Here's a thought experiment that can illustrate this. I assume you guys went to college. You guys both seem pretty bright and well-read.
Uh-huh.
So when you were in college, you probably were assigned a group project, and no one likes group projects because you're put in a group and your grade is dependent on everyone in the group doing their job, but you have no authority over them. So you're responsible. Your grade will reflect what other people who you have no control or authority over, whether they do their job or not. What almost always happens is someone in the group, or perhaps most people in the group, just don't do their work. And because you care about your grade, you have to do their work. And there's nothing you can do to those people. You can't punish them. You can't do anything to them. You are just doing their work for them because you don't want to get the heat of not having your project done on time. And that's a perfect example of responsibility without authority. And no one likes it. If you went into a job and they put you in charge of a team, but you had no authority over them, you had to just be like their little cheerleader, you would quit. When you started getting yelled at for stuff you couldn't control, you'd be like, I'm out. This is bull crap. And that's why, just fundamentally, you have to have authority and responsibility connected. You cannot separate the two. And the problem is, when it comes to egalitarianism and equal rights and so forth, we fundamentally separated authority from responsibility, because at the end of the day, women, they need men to be responsible for them. This can be individualistic when it comes to like a relationship, or it could be collective through the government, through a police state or a welfare state. But women simply, and you see this in like these game shows like Survivor, where they separate the men and the women are basically shivering under a tarp that the producers gave them, while the men have built like a 2-story bungalow. It's just that women need men to survive, period. And men have to take responsibility over women, or women will die and society will die. And then there's no more people. And that's not that's the bad ending. So you have to have authority over that which you are responsible for, which means, well, it sounds good and it tastes good and it's less filling to say that, men and women are partners and we can share everything 50-50 and it never works that way. It doesn't work that way. There might be some very kind of exception proving the rule women who, because I've seen studies or statistics that show that women in the military, about 4% of them can do what the men do. But we're talking like these are women who are in the military, so not everybody can even make it in the military. The people who do meet the standards to get into the military only 4% of the women can meet the male standard. That doesn't mean, so again, hashtag not all. There are women who can meet the male standard. There are women who are like very tomboyish and independent and rowdy or whatever, and they can do it. But the vast majority can't. In general, women require someone to be responsible for them. And so if someone's going to be responsible for you, they have to have authority over you. And that's the problem with feminism, is it fundamentally breaks that link, and it tells men, both collectively and individualistically, that they have to take responsibility for women, but they're not allowed to have any authority, which that is just oppression. And the only way to fix this dynamic is to give men back their authority. Now, unfortunately, feminism, they pull on the heartstrings of men, because men are hardwired to protect women. Men love women. We certainly don't want to make them cry or hurt them. So women weaponize that. And if a man tries to argue or do anything to restore his authority, he will get accused of misogyny. You want to take women's rights away. You hate women, so on and so on. And so I try to desensitize people by just using the word they would use, which is take women's rights away, because that's how they would phrase it. They wouldn't call it taking away women's unearned privileges or restoring the natural balance between authority and responsibility. So that's my stand when it comes to feminism, is if men and women were equal in reality, then I would be a feminist. I would favor egalitarianism, but they're not, so I'm not.
I think there's plenty for you to respond there, Destiny, so I will just let you take it away.
Yeah, I disagree with almost all of that. I don't have like a 20-minute opening statement prepared for why men and women aren't equal, but we can just go point by point if you want, I guess. I don't think that men and women are the same. I don't know if they're necessarily equal, but I don't think they have to be to have equal rights in society or to have an equal say in society. Men might gravitate towards leadership positions more than women, but a minority of men are leaders. It's not like all men are leaders and all women are followers. Like a very slim minority of men are even capable of being leaders. And I don't think I would construct society based upon like who performs the best in the military, when that is like not even close to the most important job that we have in society. So.
Those are fair points. The issue is that, yeah, you could say women and men deserve equal rights, and there are certain human rights, certain things you recognize that all human beings deserve, like the right to life, liberty, property, freedom of speech, and so forth. But then there are certain rights which are usually tied to some amount of responsibility. There's a reason why, even if a child has a job, like let's say this kid, he's in high school and he works at McDonald's, he's paying taxes, and yet he can't vote, even though he's a contributing member of society, because he's under the authority of his parents until he becomes of legal age. So he still has human rights. I mean, even babies have human rights. You can't just like throw a baby down the stairs or something, or kick him off a cliff like the Spartans. So yes, women deserve human rights. They deserve the same rights as any other human being. But when it comes to political rights, those have to come with responsibility, because otherwise you have a disconnect where, for example, people who don't pay taxes will simply vote for more free stuff because they're not paying for it. Why should they care? And then you end up with a massive welfare state.
What are the rights that we're talking about women shouldn't have? Is it just the right to vote? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, okay. So it should, when it comes to political rights, they need to be tied to responsibility. Now, this is how things originally worked back in like the olden times, when you had the landed gentry, because there wasn't an income tax back then. So the people who owned the land, they were the ones who paid the taxes. They were the ones who funded the government.
I'm just trying to get fundamentally to work. So when you say when you have the right to vote, it comes with a responsibility. Like why or what responsibility? What does that mean? What is the responsibility that comes with the right to vote?
Well, okay, let's look at let's change the context, and it'll demonstrate this a little bit better. Think of the corporate system where you have shareholders. Now, the shareholders vote for the board of directors, who hire the CEO and the other executives to run the company. The CEO and the executives work for the board, who's elected by the shareholders. Now, there are plenty of important employees. Like all the employees are important in their own special snowflake way, but only the shareholders vote for the board of directors. Now, employees can own shares and they can also vote as shareholders, but if they don't own any shares and they're simply just a good employee, their compensation is through their income. They don't get to vote in the shareholder elections unless they're a shareholder. Now, if you simply opened up voting to anyone or all the employees of the company, whether they own shares or not, they don't have any skin in the game. The reason why you want responsibility.
Why do you know why employees don't have skin in the game?
Well, because their goals and the company's goals are not, they're basically think of it like a labor dispute where you have the union versus management arguing over compensation, time off, benefits, and so forth. This is an oppositional relationship.
Well,
Labor wants.
I understand there's an oppositional relationship, but despite the fact that it's oppositional, there's still like they can still be aligned on some incentives, right? Like
Of
neither the
course,
board
like,
nor employees want the company to go under. The reason why the reason why I don't think the employee thing is analogous is because employees can just go work for another company, right? If you're in the United States, you can't just go move to another country. So I think that in the United States, I think everybody in a way is a shareholder, way more than a company where some people are merely employees that can float from business to business, and then you've got shareholders that can divest their stock and move. I don't know if that analogy holds. So returning to the original question, what responsibility needs to come with the right to vote, and why? I don't understand that.
well, again, I disagree with you that this is not an analogous argument. The shareholder argument, the reason why it's important, the reason why an employee doesn't want to see the business go bankrupt and lose its job, but they want as much as they can get up to that line. Whereas a shareholder, their priority is to see the profits of the company going up. Their interests and management interests are aligned. So if you want a profitable company, and profitable companies are the ones who survive in the long run, you want the people who vote for the board to have the interests of the company at heart, not necessarily to give the employees the most benefits and the highest pay. Competition.
Yeah, again, if this analogy just doesn't work. If we carry on with the analogy, one of the ways that the board can make a company profitable is by firing lots of employees. But again, we can't really do that in the United States. We can't say like, oh shit, we're having a problem with profits. We're going to dump half our population of the Pacific Ocean.
No, we're not. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is when you're talking about voting rights. Now, we're not talking about citizenship. We're not talking about being a citizen of the country and having access to government benefits and whatnot. We're talking about those who get to vote, because voting it's an exercise of power. You get to decide who gets to spend the money, who gets where it goes, that sort of thing. So if you are a taxpayer, if you're a net taxpayer, if you pay more in taxes than you collect in benefits, then your interests you're basically sacrificing for the country. You're not getting anything in addition to what you're paying. You're actually sacrificing for the country. Like in ancient times, you had the military. If you served in the Legion, you got to be a citizen and you got to vote for the Senate kind of thing, because you were sacrificing for the empire.
Okay, wait, just as a quick request, you sound like a pretty smart guy. I think I'm a pretty smart guy. We don't have to do like the 50 million analogies. I think we can just like stick on the one topic. Like I'm just trying to figure out why do you have to have a right or responsibility, that pairs with your right to vote. Like my understanding is that like the United States is not analogous to a corporation where you have employees and you have shareholders. It should be more analogous to a cooperative where everybody has some shareholder, some stakeholder in the direction of the country or the company. So while everybody can profit and everybody does different types of work, we're all necessarily bought into the project, and we can't just leave and we can't just fire people, right?
Well, there's ways, like there are alternatives to, if you want to do a cooperative model, you can simply make everybody pay taxes. Instead of having only the top 20% pay taxes and everyone else basically profit from the system in terms of welfare benefits. Everyone, like in Scandinavia, everyone pays taxes. They have very high personal income taxes. That's how they afford free healthcare and free college. Whereas here we have more of a, give me free stuff, but don't raise my taxes. So it all gets pushed onto inflation, essentially gets paid for with printed money or borrowed money.
Sure. Okay. Well, so first of all, it's not paid for just printed money and borrowed money. That's a really weird analysis of our monetary policy. But aside from that, I mean, we can talk about tax policy, but like any fair tax policy is going to have like higher earners paying more in taxes than lower earners. Like,
of course. No, but again, I'm jumping around a lot because I'm trying to show like this exists in the real world. This isn't just some
no. But the problem is you're using real world analogies that are disanalogous to a country. I think a country is a really unique relationship. For instance, you're born into a country with no choice. I can choose to work for a corporation. A country also kind of requires the buy-in of all of its citizens in ways where a lot of the relationships are necessarily adversarial. Apartment inhabitants might vote differently than house owners, which might vote differently than farm owners, or people that are invested in green energy might vote differently than people that are invested in fossil fuels. Like this is all part of the democratic experiment of running a country that's going to be way different than a specialized corporation that's going to have a board that's only trying to maximize profits, sometimes at the expense of other members of the corporation, like employees. But that relationship, I don't think, is anywhere near similar to the relationship that citizens hopefully have with their country. That's why I just don't think the analogy works. I think I'd rather talk like, why do you, if you have the right to vote, which I think is important for all of us to have, why do you have to have a certain set of responsibilities when different people are going to be able to perform in different ways in that country too?
Well, if you look at historically, we didn't have universal suffrage. In fact, we still don't have universal
Yeah,
suffrage.
I don't care about historically we had slavery. I don't think that's, I don't care historically. Right now, I'm asking the question of why do you have to have a responsibility just
because
because
if
you
you
have the right to
don't,
vote?
right, because if you don't, you have $31 trillion of debt, $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities, the worst inflation in U.S. history, and stagflation, because people want more free stuff and they don't want their taxes raised because that's rational for people to do. How do you combat that? How do you actually have a thriving economy in the long run? Like we created the welfare state in the 30s and we really kicked it up a notch in the 60s, and it's only been a couple generations within living memory and everything is falling apart.
First of all, I don't know if everything is falling apart, but secondly, I don't know if welfare is why we're experiencing really bad inflation right now. That seems to be a highly reductive analysis of the state of the world economy. You've got countries with worse inflations than us, like the United Kingdom, and they've had like 3 conservative governors or rulers in a row, like pushing for austerity constantly. I don't think that just saying we print money and inflation is caused by welfare. That's like I think that's a really simplistic take on the world economy. And then the idea that like only women would vote for that, I guess, is that like the next step? Only women would vote for this and men wouldn't?
Oh no, it's not. No, it's not that. So, taking women's rights away is just a stopgap to keep everything from collapsing. Because if you want to actually have a net taxpayer voter system, you wouldn't just be taking franchise away from half the population; you'd be taking franchise away from 80% of the population, which goes from probably not going to happen to definitely not going to happen. So this is more of a. It was a actual tactical, not tactical. It's a realistic way to prevent horrible suffering in the future. But no one went for it. It doesn't matter. We're going to hit the wall full speed ahead, whatever. So in the future, it doesn't matter. Like women can vote if they're net taxpayers, as far as I'm concerned. It's just that to get from here to there peacefully.
When you say net taxpayers, you're talking about somebody that pays more in federal income tax than they receive back from the government?
Yeah, basically they pay more in taxes than they receive in benefits.
Okay, so isn't this going to be disenfranchising like 50% of the U.S. population? Don't only run half of. 80% are going to get disenfranchised.
Yeah, 80% don't get to vote anymore.
Okay, that sounds like a good recipe for people just rising up and revolting. No?
Well, but they're going to rise up and revolt when the money runs out and their benefits get cut and we hit the wall at full speed. The problem is
the money's not going to run out, because money doesn't run out because we have a monetary system where we can create money, number one. And then number two, I mean, like hitting the wall. I mean, disenfranchising 80% of your population sounds like a really good way to hit the wall.
Well, that's why I'm only advocating for that. Like once everything goes to shit and we're like rebuilding from the ashes, we should like start back from scratch with a system that's going to be sustainable. But in the meantime, the only thing that I think could work that actually buy us a few generations of time would be you at least got to get women women can't vote because their biological imperative is to be taken care of. So there's somebody going to vote. And you see this, I have charts.
Haven't women been entering like the workforce at like historic rates? Like it seems like they're pretty capable of working, right? Isn't that one of the biggest complaints?
Yeah, sure. They work, but they're not net taxpayers because all the welfare is showered upon them. So they pay a little bit in taxes, and then they get all that money and then some showered upon them.
Well, wait, hold on. What do you mean women aren't net taxpayers? Like everybody in the United States as a group aren't net taxpayers, right? I don't even know if men are net taxpayers taken collectively.
Oh yeah, a minority. Well, a majority of people aren't net taxpayers.
Exactly. So that argument means absolutely nothing, right? A majority of Black people aren't. A majority of Hispanics, a majority of whites, a majority of men. Like none of I don't think anybody in the U.S. are net taxpayers.
No, the top 20% are net taxpayers, according to.
But the top 20% includes some women as well, right?
Sure, right. And if the women are net taxpayers, I'd be more than happy to, tell them, oh, sure, you can vote. Of course you can, because you're actually contributing to society and you're not taking. But
are there ways to contribute to society that aren't just like being a net taxpayer? Like, aren't there other valuable ways to contribute to society?
We're talking about, right, sure. Like, again, this goes back. I know you're like, oh, that doesn't count. But there's a reason why employees don't vote, but shareholders do. And shareholders are giving their money to the company. The employees are getting paid to do a service. So the contract is is within the four corners of the contract. They're already being compensated.
Okay.
So yes, women.
The employee analogy doesn't work, because if there was only one company in the entire country, employees would start voting because it would be really, really, really important what employees wanted. The reason why employees don't vote or their votes don't matter is because they go work for another company. But that's just not the case in a country. You can't have half your population just leave and go join somewhere else. That would be a disaster.
Well, I mean, people vote with their feet all the time. The point is, though, is
it's not a response
when
to
it
what I
comes
said.
to people can leave, and also before the Civil War, the states were more like little countries, and people could move to different states and effectively.
But we're not before the Civil War now. We've got the internet,
Right.
We've got suffrage, we've got like globalization.
Right.
So I don't care what we did before the Civil War. I don't know if that's compatible with how the world exists today.
Well, the world that exists today has a lot of problems. Now we can
the world before the Civil War had a lot of problems too, like people dying of dysentery.
Wait, let him finish.
Okay, yeah, my bad.
Go ahead.
Well, my point is the system we have now, like we've spent all the money in our savings, we borrowed all the money we can, and we're printing money and we're causing inflation. And this is just how financial systems end. This is how countries collapse. And a lot of people are going to suffer and die. And if you look at how this happened, it was because we have universal suffrage. People voted free stuff. I mean, there are plenty of people who warned about this hundreds of years ago, that when you have a democracy, people are going to vote for largesse from the treasury until you have loose monetary policy and collapse. Now, I know if you believe in modern monetary theory, you may think, oh, that can't happen because we print our own money. And okay, but look at all the countries throughout time that had hyperinflation and civil unrest and collapse for the exact same reason. So you can deny it, but the system we have now is unsustainable because we're spending too much money. People like it's just give me free stuff, don't raise my taxes, and there's just, again, you can ignore it and you can just hit the wall at full speed. And honestly, I have no power to change the system anyway. No one's interested in buying what I'm selling. So I'm not really trying to achieve anything. I'm just letting you know this is what's going to happen. Here's why it's going to happen. Prepare accordingly.
Well, I think it's an interesting philosophical discussion. Yeah, I don't think you're going to change it. But I think this is more of a battle of ideas. Okay, keep going, Destiny.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like every descriptive claim is wrong. The idea that you could compare the economic system of today that is unique in a lot of ways to like countries that collapsed in the past it just doesn't fit. There are so many new things. There are so many new ways that we're integrated with other countries today that is disanalogous to things in the past. I don't know if I'm going to compare like the fall of Rome to like the United States or like some past civilizations. I think we need a better way to analyze what's going on today than to just say like, well, welfare is causing everything to collapse because of inflation that's happening this year.
Okay,
I don't know how to engage with that point.
Well, we were on a gold standard, then we were on the Bretton Woods system, and now we're on the petrodollar system. And the petrodollar system.
Oh, dude, sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
Well, that's how we export our inflation. We're on a debt-based system that uses the Fed and all that stuff, but it's what gives the reason why we're the global monetary system is because of the petrodollar. And
no, that's not the reason why we use the petrodollar, is because pricing stuff in USD makes the most sense for any other people trading in commodities around the world, right? When you go to trade with another country, they might not always want to hold your currency. They do. Everybody wants to hold USD because we're the longest, strongest, and most stable economy in the world right now, right? That's the reason why things tend to be priced in dollars, like huge commodities like oil. The idea that there's like a weird petrodollar thing because we export inflation is based on a whole bunch of like bunk econ theory that literally nobody believes in. The reason why things are priced in USD is because when you trade something with somebody else, you want to trade in a currency that is stable, that everybody uses. So there is no petrodollar. Gold standards are horrible because you want to be able to influence your monetary policy, because it's really important in times of crisis that you have the ability to either increase the supply of money or decrease the supply of money. It also impacts how you trade with other countries as well. It's one of the reasons why people sometimes are hesitant to give up monetary policy in the European Union to Brussels, to the EU, to the Eurozone, right? Because you don't want to not be able to influence your currency if you need to export or import more things. The petrodollar, everything about it is just weird. But again, I don't think this has much to do with women voting. I think these issues can arise for a whole bunch of different reasons. I don't think any of them are tied to there's a lot of welfare.
Well, unfortunately, it is. It's tied directly to the government spending, and the debt is tied directly to welfare. Nixon got off the gold standard because he didn't want to cut welfare because he's trying to get reelected. So It's all welfare. It's Social Security. It's Medicare. It's all the means-tested welfare programs. It's the veterans benefits. It's all the government giving people other people's money in exchange for their vote. That's how politics has been running since FDR. That's why black people started voting Democrat when they previously voted Republican, because they wanted the free stuff, and FDR promised them free stuff. And you see the party shift because of that. That's just how politics works. Again, people were warning about this in the 1700s. This is why democracies fail.
There is nothing in the 1700s that can inform global monetary policy today. Not a single word of value will have been written in the 1700s that would have anything to say about macro econ that exists today. Like, it's just, I don't even know why I would even think of that.
Well, I'm talking about, like, philosophers and economists were saying that democracy will fail when the people vote demagogues who promise them stuff, and then you have loose monetary policy and fiscal collapse, and then you have a collapse of that society, and it's replaced by a dictatorship.
Isn't that all of? Isn't that
Franklin also kind of paraphrased it?
Isn't that the whole point of democracy? Is you vote for people because you want stuff? Are you saying? But, like, it's not like people are going to be happy with an authoritarian leader that does stuff they don't want.
Well, okay. So again, this is where values come in. So what is the purpose of government? To protect you from harm and exploitation, or is the government there to give you other people's stuff? Is a government explicitly there to, like, I'm poor, he's rich, I vote for his money to be given to me, make it happen, government? And that's the purpose of government, to equalize incomes and lifestyles.
I think the purpose of government is probably to, like, protect a certain type of, like, societal existence, and part of that might be the redistribution of wealth. Sure, it's not the purpose of government it's not to take from the rich and give to the poor, but it might be to ensure a stable functioning society where your poor people aren't, like, starving to death and dying on the street. So part of that government operation might be wealth redistribution. But
all right, well, I mean, from what I've read and what I've seen, economic mobility is the secret sauce. Economic equality simply just breeds people who are welfare dependent, and then they don't want to get jobs because they don't want to lose their welfare benefits, so they turn to crime to stay under the radar. And then you have drug addiction and single motherhood. And so I have charts, if you would like to see my charts.
Yeah, what is a chart that proves that welfare, like, keeps people from working and then they turn to crime?
All right. Okay. Well, you got to bear with me. Hold on. Okay, so here's chart number one. Oh, let me make it bigger.
Yeah, if you can make it bigger.
There we go. All right, so this is 2019 total government spending, and you can see that starting clockwise, starting at 12 o'clock moving clockwise, you got Social Security, Medicare, welfare, Medicaid, veterans benefits. All that combined is basically the government giving someone else's money, and everything else is the non-welfare portion, like the military is the giant blue slice.
Wait, how is it giving? Is it necessarily giving somebody else's money when you talk about, like, Medicare and Social Security? Don't we pay into those things?
No, you don't. So the way Medicare works is you pay 25 and the government pays 75. There is no, like, your FICA taxes. FICA is just a Ponzi scheme. You pay money and it goes to existing beneficiaries. And then the government promises they're going to take other people's money and give it to you when you're retired. That's why Social Security is going bankrupt. We don't have the workers to sustain the people on benefits. But it was always just a Ponzi scheme. And Medicare, there's not even the illusion of any kind of earned benefit. It's just you reach this age and the government pays 75% of your healthcare costs. And that's just straight welfare. That's the government taking other people's money and giving it to you. Now, sure, you at one point when you were younger and working, you were having your money taken away and given to someone else. So it's kind of like vampirism, like you were victimized, and then now so you got to inflict your vampirism on the world. You know, I understand that, but this system, Social Security goes bankrupt in like 10 years, and Medicare goes bankrupt in less than 10 years. I don't have the exact years off the top of my head.
I don't think either of those are true. We can bet on it if you want, but I don't know if I'll know you in 10 years. I mean, we pay into Social Security and Medicare and our taxes. If you want, we could talk about, like, cutting benefits, because there might be other income that goes into it to shore it up. And then we also have to deal with, like, an aging population where we're paying for a lot of people that we don't maybe have young people to sustain for in the future. So, I mean, we'd have to borrow from other funds to pay for it. But
we have $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. This is money that the government has no idea where they're going to get it. And this is on top of our $31 trillion of national debt. So, you know, we could cut the military. We can absolutely destroy the military. No more military. yay, we all hold hands and sing kumbaya. That there's no way that could even pay for the existing welfare benefits, let alone the $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. So we either have to put crippling taxes on everyone for decades in order to pay off national debt, or we're going to inflate it away. Let's be realistic here. Politically, we're not going to raise taxes on everyone, nor the bond market the yields are already going up. So people are pulling out of buying US bonds unless they're forced to through some kind of treaty, or like banks have to buy bonds for their accounts. But what we're really going to do to pay off this debt, in air quotes, is we're going to inflate it away. And so that's going to exacerbate inequality because the rich tend to own the assets that go up with inflation, whereas the poor tend not to. And then it creates a vicious cycle where you have more inequality, and then you have more wealth redistribution, and it just more inflation. It gets worse and worse until everything goes to crap.
Yeah, like if you want to, like, I don't want to push on this, but you said you have charts. Like, we can go into like every economic claim you're making is just not true. Sure, right. like 90% of Social Security is funded by FICA taxes right now. You brought up a graph that says single motherhood by race. I just want to see some of these economic ones. I'm just super curious.
Well, this shows you that, when you create welfare programs, you basically incentivize the problem to get worse. So in the 50s, before the Great Society, you had single motherhood rates, even among African Americans, at less than 20%. Now, this chart ends in 2010. It's way outdated. It's well over 3/4 now. But this is because of decades of welfare. So you pay people.
You can't prove that with this chart, right?
Okay.
Wait, can you talk me through why you think this chart proves that? I'm curious. I want to hear your explanation for that.
Well, you literally pay people to be single mothers. In fact, they even gave African Americans a bonus for being single mothers as opposed to simply being a poor family, incentivizing Black women to kick the father of their children out of the home.
I want to hear how you think this chart proves that relationship. I just want to hear that.
All right. So you see the chart before welfare, how the single motherhood rate is low, and then after welfare it goes up. That's called a causal relationship.
So that's not called a causal relationship. That's just a relationship between two variables. You have to prove the cause, right? You can't just link two things and say this caused that. That's not how any of this works, right?
The government paid women to kick the father of their children out of their home and become a single mother because they were getting more money from the government than if they were simply a poor family.
Do you think that anybody has made the decision to divorce a father and kick him out so that they can live off of food stamps?
That literally happened in the 60s because that was the policy, and you saw Black families get destroyed.
Okay. Do you have like an NBER study? Do you have like any type of like study that actually shows that people are making decisions to get divorced and to break up their families to live off of food stamps? The chart doesn't establish that.
This chart doesn't say. I don't have studies off the top of my head. You can, but
well, you're the one that brought the chart. So if you brought the chart, can you tell me where this chart comes from?
No, I don't have.
Okay, so you're just machine gunning at like garbage data that proves nothing. Okay. You're giving me a relationship between two variables. This does not say what you think it says. You have no idea, right?
I absolutely do. I just don't have the sources in front of me because you could look it up. This is not even like hidden secret knowledge that the welfare state in the 60s broke up the Black family. You could see the marriage rate among African Americans. It was actually higher. Young Black couples were getting married at a higher rate than white couples. And then you see after the Great Society, you see single motherhood rate skyrocketing, and it's never gone down. Now you could be like, well, that could be for any reason. Yeah, you got to like have a peer reviewed study that, okay, I don't have a peer reviewed study. I just here's what happened before, then this happened, and then this was the result. You can be like, oh yeah, that doesn't prove it to my satisfaction. Fair enough. I can't prove anything to your satisfaction.
Okay, it's not about no. Don't act like I have unreasonable standards. I'm just showing that you have nothing. You have two variables. That's not even an argument. You don't even have a hypothesis, right? That's like a starting point to a thought. Is like,
a chart is
welfare increase.
Oh, a chart is a visual representation. I also just explained what the policies were that incentivize this behavior. So it wasn't
Yeah,
like
but you don't know if it's
Well,
you could have the horse.
let him finish his point though, because
Okay,
he's about
yeah.
to go ahead.
well, so, no, this isn't like secret knowledge. Like the government paid people to kick the fathers out of their homes. This is well documented. You can see the marriage rates in African American families. The black family was destroyed. This isn't even like controversial.
Well,
It's
it's just not true. What you're saying is not true.
It's not
Like,
true.
for instance, here's a question: what do you think is more successful, a family with the father in the home or a family with welfare?
All things being equal, the father with the home.
Okay, here's a question: which households do you think make more money, two-parent households or one mom that's getting welfare?
Oh, I have a chart for that. Hold on. I have a legit chart for that, like that exact thing. So, and it actually I think it even has the sources linked in it. So this is called the welfare cliff. All right. Okay. I don't know if I can see if I can read that. Okay. The source is looks like a Pennsylvania government site, Secretary of Public Welfare. Anyway, so the welfare cliff, the blue ramp is income. So as income rises, obviously your income rises. But then you have welfare programs that you lose access to as your income rises. And then you have what's called the welfare cliff, where if you make too much money, your actual standard of living goes down. So it says
Okay,
right here, a single mom.
How can your standard of living go down?
Because you lose access to the welfare. So if you make about $15 an hour and you stack on the welfare on top of your income, you earn the equivalent standard of living of someone earning $57,327 with an income of only $29,000 because of the value of the welfare. In order to make up that difference, you'd have to go all the way up to earning like $69,000 a year just to match your standard of living at $29,000. So what this does is traps people in poverty because they don't.
Okay, so
and I've personally seen
so
people will refuse a pay raise because they'll lose their welfare.
Okay, so my understanding is most welfare is going to step off. It's not just going to drop off immediately.
Okay, so this is, I mean, right here, you have I don't know what year this ended, or I don't have the year this was published, but you have the dollar amounts right there, and you have the name of the program right there.
I can't. Can you link me your chart? I guess I can't read this, but like I'm familiar with, for instance, for the earned income tax credit, that's going to slide off as you earn more money. It's never going to be the case that like I think a raise is going to like reduce, unless there are some other forms of welfare that I'm not familiar with. Unless you can tell me, but like I know the earned income tax credit is one of the largest like welfare redistribution programs we have in the United States, and that one slides off once you start to make a certain amount of money, and then it goes down.
Right. Well, this one, so the big ones were MA, which I'm not 100% sure what that stands for. And I don't know if that's something assistance, I'm sure. CHIP.
Well, that's kind of important, right? What is MA?
Well, it's not that significant. It looks like it drops off pretty quickly once you're like out of dire poverty. It might just be straight up cash. I don't know. But CHIP and childcare are the big ones. And you can see they drop off very suddenly. And then you also have housing, which I assume is Section 8 housing, and then food stamps, which drops off pretty severely. And then it kind of peters out toward the end.
Okay. So number one, can you give me a link to this graph? I'm just curious. And then number two, my question was which families are making more money? Single moms on welfare or a family with a mother and father in the household?
Well, again, it depends. So a single mother on welfare, again, right here on the chart, says if a single mother is earning $29,000 a year, she has the equivalent lifestyle of someone earning $57,327. Whereas if she has to earn $69,000 a year after paying taxes, her after-tax income is only $57,045, which means her standard of living is higher, earning $29,000.
Hold on, that's assuming she's qualifying for every single one of these particular welfare things you're talking about, right?
Sure. This is the scenario showing in this instance a single mother who qualified for these programs. She would actually be better off earning $29,000 because of welfare than earning $69,000 after taxes. She'd actually have a higher equivalent income. And what this does, and I grew up in Section 8 housing. I've seen it. People they don't want to leave because they may not get back into Section 8 housing.
Just to be clear, wait, there's a whole bunch of qualifiers you have to add on to that, right? This is assuming that they have a child, correct?
Right. Single mother, kind of implied.
Single mother. So that's an important one. It's also assuming they're on, I'm guessing the housing is what, Section 8 vouchers?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. I find somebody linked me this actual graph, so I can actually read this. By the way, I'm not denying that welfare cliffs are a problem. I think that these should scale off better. But the question that I have for you, the question I had for you, I'll ask it again. I don't think you have an answer. Is, do you think that households are more successful with single mothers earning welfare, or with a mother and father in the household? The reason I'm asking this is because your original contention was that mothers were kicking fathers out of the household for welfare. But I think all of us know that households with a mother and a father are probably more successful financially, and they're probably more successful with a whole host of other outcomes too. So the idea that people would choose to kick the fathers out of the household to collect welfare, I would just be really curious if there's like a source on that anywhere.
I've heard it from Thomas Sowell and other books.
Okay, is he citing like any economic research? National Bureau of NBR is usually a journal that might be published in, or any type of family or crime stuff, or any like a single, like if it's so well known, if it's so ubiquitously known, like there should be like a plethora of data on this, not just a chart, right? So the answer is no. You have no data to support that assertion. Okay, sorry.
Well, Thomas Sowell and other Black economists have cited this. I don't have their sources on hand. I'm just showing, like, because you questioned, you're like, oh, this relationship doesn't prove anything. And I'm like, well, actually, there's this other data that does prove that it was directly caused by this. However, the thing is, what you're saying is true. Having a mother and a father raising their family together is going to like drastically increase their long-term income and benefits. But generally, people prioritize their short-term benefits over their long-term benefits. That's just human nature. So at the time when people like, okay, I can get a pay bump if I'm a single mom, as opposed to just being a poor family, they're going to choose that route. So
yeah, but you can't just say that. You have nothing to prove that, right?
Okay.
Because I'm going to reject that. I'm going to say, I don't think people are saying like, sorry, honey, like you need to leave, and I'm going to just live as a single mom in poverty because I'm getting better welfare. I don't think human beings are ever making that choice. That's why I'm curious if you can show like we can see here that like there are actually mothers that are choosing to live this lifestyle rather than they're collecting welfare because they happen to be single mothers, right? That's a totally different thing. You're putting the cart before the horse.
Well, so here's the welfare cliff again, showing people do choose to stay behind because their actual lifestyle will go down if their income goes up, which includes if they have, a two-parent household, they would lose access to their benefits if them and their husband both worked because they make too much money. Happens all the time. Now, most people,
you can't just say it happens all the time when you haven't shown it. You haven't shown that.
Well, I also showed you the single motherhood rate skyrocketing, and it's gotten worse since 2010. It's not moving down. And what's happening? Why are women choosing to be single mothers overwhelmingly? Well, not overwhelmingly, but the rate of single mother keeps going up. Well, in the Black population, it's over 3/4. There are people who they have no idea that like everyone they know is being raised by a single mother. It's the norm now in certain communities. And the communities that are riddled with single mothers are also riddled with poverty and crime and shitty schools and all the horrible things that are like tearing those communities apart. And you see the single motherhood, it goes along with that. As the rise of single motherhood happens, you see the rise of all the other problems in society. I don't have a source. I'm just quoting I'm paraphrasing Thomas Sowell. He talked about there's a video where he's talking about the two different blackouts. One of them happened, I don't know, I think the 50s or something. And this was back before the welfare. And there was no one rioted. Nobody did anything. Like, he used to walk through Harlem and he wasn't worried about anything. And then flash forward a couple decades, I think like 12 years, not even 2 decades. And now you have the Great Society and you have this huge pivot in terms of just showering all this stuff and incentivizing this behavior. Mm-hmm. And then now you see the black crime spike and you see
I'm searching for this because I'd like to get like an actual answer. So here is something called, this is the Foundation for Government Accountability. And this talks about the theory of the welfare cliff. Apparently very, very few people that are on welfare are even near this cliff. So the idea that they're like just barely avoiding more work because they're going to lose out on a whole bunch of stuff doesn't seem to be the case. So for instance, one of the sources in here is 13 million people are on welfare. 250,000 are within 10 percentage points of the eligibility limit for the welfare cliff. This goes over a lot of the cliffs related to welfare, but apparently a lot of people on it are like just not working. But the idea that there are all of these people that are just working just barely enough to min max, that are like welfare maxing, like I said, I would need to see like at least one thing that actually says that, rather than you just showing me like theoretical welfare cliffs for somebody that's on 7 different types of welfare, making a certain type of amount of money. Like this.
All right. So again, I have the charts, but if it's fine, my evidence isn't good enough for you.
Well, hold on.
There's
Do you really not understand? Or just listen, intelligent person to intelligent person. A chart, there's a reason why. Or I'm curious, what do you think? When we publish like research in journals, why do people publish more than just a chart? Have you ever in your life seen a study that's just a chart?
Well, I'm using the chart as a visual representation. I don't want to have a whole study where I go paragraph by paragraph and there's like 10 pages of citations. That's it's. I understand if that's what you require,
Can
then
you
that's
okay,
fine.
when you read like a study on economics, when a chart exists and there are a couple of variables, can you talk to me about like how you think they choose the variables for the chart, or why they have a chart in a study? Like, do you have any idea? Or
You usually have an X and a Y axis, and the X tracks something and the Y tracks something, and then maybe there's a time, and then things happen, and the X and the Y axis react over time, and there's a relationship, and usually that relationship is described in the study, and there's usually citations to like official census data and so on and so forth. I don't have that data in front of me.
okay, sure, but I'm just saying that so something that would be more compelling is if instead of a bunch of charts, what you could do is just copy paste a bunch of abstracts. Instead of saying like, well, here's a chart for a welfare cliff, which we know exists. We know welfare cliffs exist, but you're not talking about the existence of a welfare cliff. That's what your chart is proving. Everybody knows welfare cliffs exist. It's one of the reasons why these programs have off ramps and phase out things, and there's still an issue. But you're not claiming that a welfare cliff exists. You're claiming that people are welfare maxing their income. That needs a study, not just a chart.
No, we're like 3 degrees away from the original question where I'm trying to demonstrate that
My
problem
original
with
oh god, sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, just the problem with universal suffrage is people vote themselves free stuff, and because there's no reason not to. They don't have any skin in the game. There's no price for them to pay to not do this. You saw this during COVID. You see this right now. People like $31 trillion in debt, $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. What do people want? Forgive my student loans, UBI, rent controls, like all this stuff. They want more free stuff from the government. Where's it coming from? It's not coming from them. So that's the problem. That's why we have all these unfunded liabilities. Now you may think that's fine. Like, oh, we'll print the money, or we'll do some kind of magician thing in the Treasury or the Fed, and everything will be fine. But no, when you print money, you cause inflation. And sure, we won't run out of money. We'll always have money. Just that money will become worthless as we go into hyperinflation. And like before the inflation that happened just this last couple of years, everyone was, oh no, the Fed can do whatever it wants. There won't be any inflation. Look, there hasn't been inflation in the last 10 years, but there's a difference. When the Fed lowers interest rates, it affects asset prices. But when the stimmy checks and the unemployment bonus that people are getting, and the rent moratorium, so they didn't have to pay their rent for 18 months, that was going directly into the economy, and that's what caused the inflation. Now it's slowly going away because those programs have ended, but we're not going to go back to like 2019 prices. We're going to just find a new plateau, and that's going to be the new normal.
Let me pose this question, because I think you'll kind of redirect. So this is to you, TFM. If the issue is irresponsible people voting, why not have some kind of like merit system instead of making it by gender?
Again, ideally, I would have a net. So I look at it this way: the people who control the spending, which is the Congress, they should be elected by those who pay into the system, because they're in charge of the money, and if they're net taxpayers, it's their money. So you have a connection between authority and responsibility. So net taxpayer vote for Congress. When it comes to the president, I think that should be the people who either volunteer for the draft or sign up for the draft, or are veterans, because the commander in chief is the president, and the people who sacrifice or risk their lives in war, they should be rewarded for that. So it's more or less the system we have now, but not with universal suffrage. Now that the merit system is about responsibility. Who's bearing responsibility for the government purse strings? It's the taxpayers. Well, obviously, if you're getting a bunch of welfare and you're not paying a net tax, you're not contributing anything. You're actually benefiting from the system. So you might pay taxes, but if you get all that money back and then some, you're not sacrificing anything. So you should not have the power to vote for the government. Otherwise, you'll just vote for more free stuff, which is exactly what happens. So the taking women's rights away thing, that's just right now in the next, I don't know how many decades, it's going to get really bad as the financial system breaks and all these unfunded liabilities. And it's going to be a very dangerous, there's going to be a lot of pain and suffering. And there's no way to come down from this. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse until everything goes to shit. And then whoever survives can build a new system on the ashes. And to avoid that, the only way to really avoid that is to get our spending under control. And the only way to do that is you have to get the people who aren't contributing away from the levers of power. And so women are just they're the, like, you look at how many welfare programs just go to women alone. Women are also the majority of the people on Social Security and Medicare because they live longer. Like the welfare state it goes overwhelmingly to women.
What makes you think that like large corporations wouldn't vote themselves to have more tax benefits?
Well, corporations shouldn't vote. Corporations are
no. Like, let's say, why wouldn't wealthy people just vote to get more benefits for themselves? Why do you think they're immune to this problem?
Oh, so if they tried to and they weren't, so if they voted themselves a bunch of benefits, they wouldn't be net taxpayers anymore and they would disenfranchise themselves. So it's a self-repairing system. If people try to abuse the system to give themselves stuff, they can't vote anymore. They basically disenfranchise themselves, and the people left can basically repeal that whatever, and then everything goes back. So you basically, people also, if you're poor but voting is super important to you, you just don't have to accept government aid, and then you're a net taxpayer even if you're low income, if you're willing to work hard and whatever. But it's all about being a net taxpayer. So the people who want to, if voting's super important, they can just be a net taxpayer. Even if it's only $1, they're a net taxpayer. Congratulations. And if you try to abuse the system and vote yourself more stuff, now that you can vote, well, now you're not a net taxpayer anymore. You can't vote anymore. So unlike other systems, it actually has like a dynamic kind of like a mobility when it comes to the quote unquote ruling class, because anyone can do it. You just have to be a net taxpayer. And this creates an incentive. Like if people want to limit the franchise, they could offer more welfare to people in order to limit the pool. And the people can either accept those benefits or they can reject them. And if they're, let's say, the ultimate system, the ultimate kind of carrying this to its logical conclusion, let's say everybody disenfranchises themselves except for one guy, one trillionaire who's literally bankrolling the entire government. And he's now the kingmaker who gets to he's basically king, but he's also the one bankrolling the entire government out of his own pocket. Okay. Like basically if he stops taking care of people, they're going to get to vote again. The only reason why they can't vote is because they're accepting government benefits. But if this guy wants to bankroll the whole system out of his own pocket, I mean, what's wrong with that? Is that really such a bad thing? You're basically getting stuff and you don't have to pay for it. And so this guy gets to put a crown on and a robe and pretend he's king, but he's paying for everything that's benefiting you. And if he stops doing that, then you're going to get your franchise back and you're going to be able to change the system.
Wow. Okay. Sounds based.
Well, but again, here I have one more chart, and then I'll shut up because I know my charts are very unimpressive. I do have my sources listed for this one though. So hopefully that will please you. So here we have. Oh gosh, it's so small. That's what she said, right? All right. So here's my sources. Congressional Budget Office, distribution of household income and federal taxes, 2013 tables 1, 2, and 3, and then from 2016 supplemental data table 3. And so you can see here we have. Let me blow this up. I know it's a little hard to read. So this is basically, now this isn't. It would be nice if they didn't do it this way, but they broke everyone into quintiles. So there's 5 quintiles: the poorest 20%, the lower middle 20%, the upper middle, lower upper, and the richest 20%. And you have their market income, their federal taxes, federal transfers, which it's right here. It's all defined. Federal transfers are Medicaid, CHIP, SNAP, SSI, and other means-tested welfare programs. Social insurance, which is Social Security, Medicare, unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation. And you can see that nobody pays a net tax other than the richest 20%. Everybody makes money from the system. And what's interesting is the poorest 20% don't even make the most money. They only make $13,000, whereas the two middle class brackets, they're the ones who make the most money. And this is something that Milton Friedman called director's law, where the middle class, they get the most benefits. And you might say that's a good thing, but that's just a reality. So if we had a net taxpayer voter system, 80% of people wouldn't be able to vote anymore. That's why it will never happen. I think it's a better system. And also, you know, I know you don't like historical examples, but back in the 1700s, we didn't have an income tax. So the landed gentry were the taxpayers, and the government funded itself with tariffs. And, you know, obviously things change over the centuries, but maybe like foreseeing the fact that an income tax will probably be inevitable, like just biting the bullet and factoring that into the system. Because I'm for economic mobility. In fact, that's the kiss of death of a society. When you have a stratified caste system where the rich are basically hooking up their kids and they're basically completely disconnected from reality. And then, you know, dynamic, smart people at the bottom can't get up because they're being, you know, the ladder's being kicked down. That's when you have revolution. But if you have a dynamic ruling class, for lack of a better word, where anybody who wants to sacrifice and pay the price can join that class, if it's important enough to them, you're not going to have revolution, because the people who are smart and ambitious can simply join that class. And the people like the dumb kids of the rich, who blow through their money and their spendthrifts, they're going to get kicked out of that class, and they're going to have to go work at McDonald's or something. So the whole take women's rights away and women shouldn't voting, that's just things are going to get really bad because we're going to have hyperinflation. That's how this story ends. And a lot of people are going to die. And this is just like a stopgap to get from there to there. Now, in the future, if we have a net taxpayer voter system, if women want to be a net taxpayer, they can vote. There won't be that many of them. Like, it's not going to be. There might be like a handful of women, and look, throw them a parade. The women who actually want to sacrifice and be a net taxpayer, they can get on a float together and we could wave to them. The vast majority of people just want to be taken care of. As long as the government isn't screwing them hard in butt, they don't really care who the president is or which party's in power, as long as their life is good. Like, the only reason why people are so politically active is because both parties want to force their values down the other's throat. So it becomes like, my guy has to win or my life is going to get worse. And the other guy's going to, you know, do something to my kids or something, whether it's forcing them to watch VeggieTales or get their penises cut off. Like, something's going to happen to my kids and I have to protect them from the other party. And that's why politics has become so divisive. So I don't even remember where I was going with that. I'm just going to stop now.
Destiny, what's your response to that?
I truly don't even know how to engage. Generally, I didn't know who this person was in advance, but usually when people are arguing with charts, you know that they don't have like the prerequisite knowledge or education to have an understanding of the topic they're arguing about. So I usually just avoid those conversations completely. I know that sounds dismissive, but like when he's showing me a chart of like, these are the bad programs that screw over people, and he doesn't even know what like half the programs on the chart that he's showing me is, he doesn't know the study they're coming from, and he thinks that like two variables on a graph prove a causal relationship. Like, the engagement with all these topics, it just sounds like you watched a YouTuber or read a thing, and then like that's like your entire opinion. I don't know how you could come to a debate like this, like eager to throw out a whole bunch of like information, and you don't have a single study. That's astounding to me. I would be embarrassed and mortified if I went into a data-driven argument and all I had were like Discord charts. But you don't even realize why that's embarrassing. So like, I don't even know how I would try to talk like macro econ with somebody citing me things that people said in the 1700s. It sounds really mean. I'm sorry. I'm kind of intentionally being mean, but like, yeah, like almost nothing you're saying is true. Like, I've already like addressed some of it, but like you don't even realize why what you're saying isn't true. So I don't know how to say it. Like, I'll ask the one fundamental question I asked earlier. Can you show me any evidence whatsoever that people are min-maxing welfare? But then you're pointing to a chart. I don't know what to say to that.
Right.
That's not how that works. That's not how any of that works. Right.
Right.
So like, here's an
like,
example. Like, I might have like, I might have I might do a study where I say, what is the normal attainment of an employee in their work life? And I might be able to show that an employee will work and they earn this much money, but I might have the control might be a normal employee that makes no welfare. And then I show that against like 5 or 6 other types of workers on different types of welfare. And I might show you can look at the employee behavior. Once they approach these cliffs, they tend to either reduce the amount of hours they work, or they tend to make choices that are adverse to future earning potentials. And I might be able to explain that by the fact that they're on a certain type of welfare. That type type of research would go, oh, holy shit, people are actually min-maxing welfare. But instead, you just show me a chart and you go, well, look at this welfare cliff. Everybody knows those exist. Nobody makes the claim that it's influencing workers' choices. And then you say, well, I think moms are kicking dads out of the household so that they can min-max their welfare, but you have no data or evidence for that whatsoever. I could present to you 15 other hypotheses for why that happens. I could say that one, the chart you're showing me is just going by single mothers. It's not, or by married mothers or unmarried mothers. It might be the fact that more people are living together, but they're just unmarried because shotgun weddings are a lot less popular than they were in the 60s and 70s. It might be that there are other things causing single motherhood, which would cause them to get welfare, not the other way around, that they're choosing welfare so they become single mothers. But again, this would take like research. You have the positive argument here. I guess if you wanted me to, like, we can spend, if you want, we can spend 10 or 15 minutes like researching right now if you want to. I could show you like some good things to type into Google, but one chart showing the relationship between two variables is not going to give you a causal relationship between something as complicated as why do people choose the types of employment they choose or choose the types of family structures they do. If you want to do that research right now, I would be happy to do it with you. Like, it might be a fun experiment,
Right.
but I don't know how you can expect to show a chart and then say that, well, in the 1700s this happened, and like that's an argument. Like,
Right. So this is why I don't like debates, and nothing personal against you. Like I used to, if when I used to make videos back in like 2015, 2016, I used to do extensive research and I used to cite my sources, and I aired on the caution of peer review. And what happens is I run into a tactic which I dub do my homework, where people, they just reject my evidence, and they find flaws with all my sources. This source is from the 90s. This source, the group size is too small, and they just find me more evidence. And there was a time, I don't remember what year this was, I bit, and I'm like, okay, I will keep finding evidence. Every time I found evidence, the guy found a reason to dismiss it. And I think after several hours, he just stopped replying, and I just thought this is a giant waste of my time. So,
right, so because you've debated some people that are bad faith in the past, you've decided to become bad faith. That's what I'm hearing.
No, it's not. It's not about bad faith. It's like the charts are visual representation. I could, in the future, I can try. I'll dig up the sources, and I will have the sources available in the future. But this isn't that hard. Like, you can be like, well, there's plenty of reasons why the single motherhood rate skyrocketed after the welfare state. It couldn't possibly be that paying people to be single mothers incentivized the creation of single mothers. That's a myth. Where's your sources? That's fine. I don't even I'll just concede the entire argument. Welfare is just happens. Who knows why it happens? It just happens.
I don't understand why I'm not asking for 50 million. I'm just asking for a single one. A graph is never a source. Yeah. Okay. A graph. So why not just get one abstract of one study, like just a single abstract?
Well, if I had the sources of the graph, which I could dig them up, and there's old videos where I used to cite my sources, but it's just, I don't have it on me, and frankly, if I had it and I gave them to you, maybe you'd read it like, oh, okay, I can see this is valid, and the data checks out. Or you might say, well, I don't like this study. I don't like this study. Find a better one.
Does it not? Do you not feel a little bit embarrassed that you're sourcing me a graph and you don't even know what study it comes from, or if it even comes from a study? Because one of the graphs you sourced me didn't come from a study. It was just like a web page talking about welfare cliffs. That's not a study, and it had nothing to do with your assertion that welfare cliffs are causing people to choose to be single moms. Right? Like, if I'm going to source a graph, like maybe I want to talk about, like, I think Black people get pulled over more than white people. I might source a graph from the Nature study showing that at nighttime, the rates of people getting pulled over are similar. I might show that graph, but if somebody says, well, tell me about that graph, well, I'd be able to tell you, well, this is how they did the study. They used a very clever trick with daylight savings time in order to control for like work environments and to make sure that, right, I would be able to talk about it. I wouldn't just say like, here's a graph, and then that's it, right? Like, you don't even know the studies that these are coming from. So that tells me you haven't done any research. You're just going on a website that's saying that, like, here, like www.singlemomsarehomeless-because-of-this-reason.com, and then you're just copy pasting graphs. Otherwise, you would be able to tell me, oh, I took this graph from this study, or at least like have an idea of where it came. I'm not saying like it's the NBR paper published by blah blah blah, but just like at least an idea. But you have no idea whatsoever where any of your sources come from.
No, I've been. These are old charts I've had for years, and I just haven't updated them, and I don't have the sources on hand, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It
Like,
doesn't matter. Okay, well, we can search for something right now if you want. We can do research right now. I'm curious. So, like, I could Google why are single motherhood rates so high, and we could see the types of answers that come up. We could do that if you want, and then we can go through and look. We can go on Google Scholar and look if you want, or because that would actually like get us. I could be wrong. By the way, you might be 100% correct. Like maybe I'll Google that and it says that welfare has incentivized single motherhood rates, and that's why. But I'm just saying you haven't even shown you're not even wrong. You haven't even given me enough information to say you're wrong. You haven't even put forth an argument.
Well, okay. So I put forth the argument. I have the charts as a visual representation. I know the sources. I didn't prepare a list of studies. I didn't have all the citations. I made the case. You can be like that. You haven't proved anything. You haven't. Okay. All right.
Okay, so then I Googled some stuff. So here's my counter, I guess. I just did this in 2 seconds. So statistics about children in single parent families. In the United States today, nearly 24 million children live in a single parent family. This total, which has been rising for half a century, covers about 1 in every 3 kids.
Justin, can you share your screen so the audience can see?
Oh no, I'm posting it in a private chat there. I can't really share my screen. It's kind of complicated, but this total, which has been rising for half a century, covers about 1 in 3 kids across America. A number of long-term demographic trends have fueled this increase, including marrying later, which would, I guess, make sense, declining marriage rates, which also makes sense, and increasing divorce rates, and an uptick in babies born to single mothers. I don't see anything about welfare here. Maybe I can go to the next one. The unbelievable rise in single motherhood in America. This is a Washington Post article. This was published 8 years ago, but let's see. Control F, welfare. I don't see that.
Wow.
Let's see. More women are having their children later in life, or they're doing so in less traditional ways, before marriage, without marriage, or with unmarried partners. Single motherhood has grown so common. Half of all children.
If women are just for some unrelated reason choosing to be single mothers just because it's a new hip thing, then why are there so many welfare programs for single mothers? Why do we have all these institutions to make sure single mothers have all this money given to them from, like, in the form of the family court, all these welfare programs? It's not just 1 or 2. It's like the vast majority of all welfare programs go to women. Why do you think that is?
My guess is going to be, when you're asking that now, I don't have data. We could look this up if you want, but my guess is going to be the vast majority of welfare dollars go to women, because my guess is going to be the vast majority of welfare dollars are spent on childcare, and the vast majority of single parents are mothers. That's going to be my guess. Do you think I'm wrong on that? We could look that up.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. So why are single motherhood rates? Why are women choosing to be single mothers after the welfare state when they were getting married? Before the welfare state, like, marriage rates were much higher prior to the welfare state. In fact, again, I don't have the source, but from memory, the young black marriage rate was higher in the 50s than the white young marriage rate.
I mean, again, I'm just Googling. I don't know the answers to this, but here's the thing. Until the 1970s, shotgun marriage was the norm in premarital sexual relations. The custom was succinctly stated by one San Francisco resident in the late 1960s. If a girl gets pregnant, you married her. There wasn't no choice, so I married her. Since 1969, however, the tradition of shotgun marriages has seriously eroded. And then there's a table that's linked. For whites in particular, the shotgun marriage rate began its decline at almost the same time as the reproductive technology shock. And the decline in shotgun marriages has contributed heavily to the rise in the out-of-wedlock birth rate for both white and black women. In fact, about 75% of the increase in the white out-of-wedlock first birth rate and about 60% of the black increase between 1965 and 1990 is directly attributable to the decline in shotgun marriage. If the shotgun marriage rate had remained steady from 1965 to 1990, white out-of-wedlock births would have risen only 25% as much as they have. Black out-of-wedlock births would have increased only 40% as much. So maybe it's people not doing the shotgun wedding thing as much when somebody gets pregnant.
Right, because, all right, so like before the welfare state, families took care of each other. Like when someone falls on hard times, when dad dies, mom lives with you. This happens in Asian countries to this day. It's basically culturally expected for the children to take care of their parents. But now we have Social Security. So now kids don't have to take care of their parents. There's no cultural expectation to them to take care of their parents. Used to have churches take care of the poor people. Used to have mutual aid societies that took care of communities. And the welfare state removed all that. No one cares about investing in families, churches, or communities because the government's going to take care of them. And now when people fall in hard times, they turn to the government.
Now, you can still take care of like family and stuff. Social Security doesn't prohibit that. And again, most of Social Security is paid for by taxpayers. So I mean, we could get rid of Social Security, and then what? We would just like. Do you
my
think that would
point
be
is
better?
before-
Like, do you think it'd be better if we got rid of Social Security? Do you think that'd be better that now mom and dad are
Yes.
retired and they have no? Okay.
Yes, and I'll explain why. I don't have a study though. Just be prepared. But when in countries that don't have these welfare states, like in Asia, where it's culturally expected
Asia is not a country, to be clear, but go ahead.
in continents like Asia, full of countries full of Asian people, where it's culturally expected for the children to take care of the parents when they get old because the government isn't going to do it. You have parents investing far more in their children because their children are their retirement. So you have more parental investment. You have
Okay, if I
stronger
ask a question,
families, particularly extended families.
So if I were to Google right now, Asian country Social Security, are you telling me that no, that Japan, South Korea, these countries don't have Social Security? I'm just curious. If I were to check that,
Well, no, they do now. Look at their birth rate. Their birth rates are like they're basically going extinct because they.
wait, then
they
what was
don't
the
need
point of
that
everything you just
anymore.
said about cultural expectation? It sounds like they do have Social
I'm
Security.
talking
then.
about before, and they're still like in poor Asian countries like China, where they don't have like these generous welfare programs. Families, churches, and mutual aid societies and other charity groups took care of poor people, and it built strong churches, families, and communities. Now everyone turns to the government. I don't have a study to prove that. It's just kind of obvious.
You can't.
If
You're talking about really complicated, like relationships between citizens and government and welfare. You can't just say it's self-evident. I don't need a study.
All right. Well, look, this is basically a deductive versus inductive reasoning issue.
No, it's not.
that's-
What is the difference between deductive and inductive reasoning?
Well, I can look at a small sample set and I can draw a larger conclusion.
No, okay,
Or
stop.
you can
Deductive logic means that when you're making statements, like a syllogism is a deductive statement. If A, then B, if B, then C, therefore, if A, then C. That would be like a deductive statement. Deductively, it must be true. Inductive logic just means that we're gathering some amount of data and we're saying this is probably true. It's like probabilistic versus like deductive logic. This is nothing to do with deductive versus inductive. Even the best study in the world isn't going to be deductive. I'm just saying we need like any type of study whatsoever at all, like anything at all.
All right. I don't. So again, this is why I said inductive versus deductive. If you're a philosopher, you could just form syllogisms and you could be like, because this, then this. If you're a scientist, you want to gather evidence, you want to do experiments, you want to make sure all your ducks are in a row and all your numbers match up, and you don't believe anything unless you have a peer-reviewed study. And that's fine. That's fine if that's what you require.
Yes. Okay. I do.
Okay,
When we make like statements about economics and sociology and stuff, we generally would like a study for those statements, not it's obvious, because obviously people are going to disagree on what's obvious, right?
All right. Well, okay. And I played that game before, and it was a giant waste of my time, so I just don't do that anymore. No offense against you. That's fine. Okay. So,
Destiny, what about his main, going back to what he was saying about the net taxpayer system? What are your thoughts? Because we kind of got derailed a little bit.
It's just horrible. Like the people that are voting, in my opinion, should be the people that are affected by the system, not just the ones that are born into an area that are lucky enough to be able to be net contributors to a system. Just because somebody makes more money doesn't mean that they should be a ruler of everybody else that doesn't have the same opportunities available to them. Whether or not you're getting more from the government or not should be depending upon like what's going to build a better country for everybody. I don't think that your voting ability should be tied into that. I think that's insane.
all right. Well, I don't know. So generally people just when they don't have any skin in the game, they simply vote for more free stuff. But I don't have a study. I can't prove it.
I mean, rich people vote for free stuff too. Like rich people are voting for their particular corporations to get preferential treatment by the government. They're voting for things that are going like the Trump 2017 tax act. Like, I mean, like everybody is incentivized to vote for things that makes them happy. That gives them shit. That's everybody, of course.
Right. And if the rich vote for tax cuts, that's generally the thing that they support. When you're talking about lobbying and getting government contracts, that's more of a corruption thing. That's not even a voting thing. Like corporations can lobby government, but corporations don't vote. They can only lobby. That's not a vote. I'm talking about voting. Like, yes, rich people want tax cuts, poor people want more free stuff.
I mean, rich people want government handouts too, right? The payment protection program, the PPP, the paycheck protection program. That was a lot of money that went to pretty wealthy.
Oh yeah, I agree, and that was bull crap. And I agree.
But wealthy people loved it. I mean, like fuck, like I cashed on the PPP. Like everybody that could probably did, right? Like,
and that's what caused the inflation. The stimmy checks, all the PPP loans, the government basically shutting the economy down and then printing a bunch of money and showering it on people to keep demand up. So you had less supply, more demand, prices went up. Shocking. It's like, of course, prices
It's not
went up.
shocking. Everybody knew the price were going to go up. Of course, you have a worldwide pandemic. You're shutting down economies, and then you're using stimulus to float people through it. Yeah, of course, everybody expected that.
Well, there were people who were saying that inflation is going to be fine, it's going to be transitory, and here we are.
Well, wait, are you saying the inflation is permanent?
Well, as long as the government keeps printing money and increasing the money supply, it's not going to. Now, the rate of increase is going to go down because we're no longer giving people stimmy checks. We're no longer allowing people to live rent free in people's homes without paying rent. So certain programs have ended, and so the rate of increase will go down. And then, of course, the war in Ukraine happened, which affected supply in other ways, the sanctions against Russia. But things aren't going to go down.
There are worldwide economic problems that are causing inflation, right? Like inflation is going to be a constant battle that you fight. That's the whole reason the Federal Reserve exists. That's why all central banking exists, is to combat inflation and unemployment. That's just the game that we play with our worldwide economies, right? You're never going to eliminate inflation. There's going to be a little bit expected to happen every year, depending on policy. Sometimes it'll be a little more, sometimes it'll be a little bit less. But I mean, I would prefer that world to like the gold standard world and no welfare, where if you're poor, you just die if you have like a disease or something. That sounds kind of a shitty world to me.
I didn't say no welfare. In fact, I just said that in order to limit the franchise, you want to offer welfare where people take it and have their basic needs met. But it doesn't even matter if their basic needs are met because people are going to want more.
Yeah, but those systems are going to suck shit.
Well, there's
going to be like, why would wealthy people vote to make like fucking like Medicaid better if the system is only like for poors? Like, I would vote to give them money and then just have those systems be corrupt and garbage the entire time. Why would I care about what a poor person says? They can't vote, right? There's just so many like horrible incentives in that program.
Okay. So there are plenty of there are, like, you look at the Singapore system. They have a better system than we do. Because
what is a Singapore system? What are you referring to? Just real quick.
So the fact that, so when they tax you, but they put your money in accounts that you control. There's 3 accounts. One account is for retirement, one account is for home ownership, and one account is for medical costs. Now, it's very paternalistic. The government is basically forcing you to save for a rainy day, which you should do on your own without the government forcing you to. But human nature is people generally spend all the money they make, and then when they fall in hard times, they hold their hand out and want someone to save them. So Singapore basically takes a paternalistic approach and says, okay, you're going to save money for healthcare costs, for retirement, for home ownership. And now they do have a safety net, but everyone has to pay a little. Nothing is free. Like when you go and their healthcare system is cheaper than the US. They have better outcomes. They have better healthcare for less money, and their system works. And they basically solved a lot of problems by forcing people to have skin in the game. Now,
doesn't everybody pay for like Medicare in the United States and like Social Security? Like there are programs that we all pay for as well. No.
No.
Also, it looks like for Singapore, a lot of their stuff is publicly funded too.
Yeah, they have a safety net, but if you're poor, even if you qualify for a subsidy, you still have to pay from that medical care fund that the government forces you to open and fund with your taxes. It's not. So the problem is with our system, the government taxes you and it goes into a big piggy bank that the government controls, and they can use it to buy votes because it feels like it's free money, even though it's technically everyone's money. Like the government had to take it from someone, but it feels like it's free because you never see the money. It never hits your account. But when it goes into an account that you control and the government says, okay, you're poor, so we're going to subsidize your healthcare to this degree, but you have to pay part of it yourself. People have skin in the game. People have a different mindset. It doesn't feel like free stuff. It feels like, okay, like I'm going to pay a little and the government's going to help me out because I'm low income. And it just works better and it costs less. And the point of the net taxpayer voter system is to basically incentivize people that have skin in the game so they don't just vote themselves free stuff and cause horrible, horrible financial problems with the economy. So we can have a thriving, productive, prosperous system, which will actually work better for everyone. Because again, if you're poor, but you want to vote because it's super important to you, you just don't have to accept welfare. You have to basically, like, there are people who qualify for welfare who refuse to take it. And those people should be allowed to vote. They're demonstrating integrity and they're demonstrating a willingness to sacrifice for the country in order to, for whatever reason. But having systems which encourage that behavior is going to lead to better outcomes than systems which encourage using welfare or other, just basically buying people's votes, essentially. The government taking money and then saying, vote for me and I'll forgive your student loans, or I'll give you this free stuff, or I'll subsidize this and I'll do this. And people vote for those reasons because it's rational for them to do so. But when you do that, you cause horrible debt, and you cause horrible unfunded liabilities, and you cause horrible inflation. And that's the problem we're facing. Like if we have infinite resources and there was no scarcity, sure, like who cares? Like, yeah, vote for whatever you want. It's infinite. Who cares? But we don't. Like, and actions have consequences, and things which are given have to be taken from someone else, and that leads to bad outcomes. Now, I don't know. It's kind of like it's a value judgment. Maybe you think it's worth it. Maybe it's okay. Maybe we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Maybe hyperinflation won't be so bad. But I don't know. It's one of those things. Again, I have no power to affect change. Nobody's buying what I'm selling, and I accept that. I'm just letting
there seems to be a few people in the chat who actually like your ideas, so I don't know. I would disagree with that.
But look, when things go to shit, when things basically reset, we're going to have to rebuild something. Now, generally, what people do in the absence of any alternative ideas, they tend to fall back on what they know. So I'm throwing out ideas so that when things go to shit and we are rebuilding, we have like the founding fathers were influenced by like Adam Smith and Locke and other philosophers at the time. So when they fought the revolution against King George, they had an idea of a different system. Otherwise, George Washington would have been king, and that feudal system would have just continued with George Washington as king, and America just would have been another monarchy. But they were influenced by philosophers and writers to have different ideas, and they created America a little bit differently. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm throwing out ideas.
What if instead of all of this craziness, if like you're so concerned about this, the debt and everything, why not just pass a law that says for every budget increase, it has to be paired with a tax increase, or for every tax decrease, it has to be paired with a budget decrease? Wouldn't that simplistic legislation like fix every single problem you're talking about without going down this weird road of like disenfranchising people that aren't paying taxes?
Well, that's the political, like, in a perfect world, if we could just have an adult conversation, there's actually more options than just that. We can either increase our taxes to the amount of government we want, or we could shrink government to the amount of taxes we're willing to pay. Either one would work. Like Scandinavia pays more taxes, but they have free healthcare and free college. Other places might want to keep more of their money and have fewer government services as a result. That's up for people to decide. The problem is we have only 20% of the population pay a net tax. So you're just that.
Yeah, but you don't care about necessarily the people not paying the net tax thing. What you care about is that people are going to vote to like cause like runaway debt and shit. What I'm saying is, why not just make a law that says like we can't have any more new debt without like securing the like funding for it? No more unfunded liabilities. Wouldn't that just solve every problem instead of like all this other kind of stuff?
Yeah, if I had a magic ring or a genie and I could just make laws happen that wouldn't be overturned despite what the voters think. Like if we could just impose restraint on government spending, and so they couldn't buy more votes, and no matter how many people like, hey, give us more free stuff, like, oh, we can't. The genie said we have to cut spending. Sure. But in the political realities are such that there's too many people who don't have any skin in the game who just want more free stuff. And that being the case, there's really no way to get from there to there. Like we could do it hypothetically. We'd say in like some hypothetical world, we could just have some kind of relationship.
Are we all talking about hypothetical worlds? If we're talking about like a world where women aren't voting, aren't we necessarily talking about hypothetical worlds?
Well,
I think Destiny is saying like, what if you could do like a constitutional amendment and that like it can be changed, and then like wouldn't that be like simpler way of taking care of the problem that you're concerned about?
Here's the problem with that is like the Constitution is just a piece of paper. Only power checks power. So you have the power of the mob, who's going to be, I mean, they're the majority of the population. They're used to being taken care of. And like, how are you going to get that law passed that's going to disenfranchise, or not even disenfranchise? It's going to be, even if they could vote, like you saw this in Europe, like with Greece, they had to force austerity because they were bankrupt, and I think the IMF and Germany forced them to have austerity, and then the entire government was voted out. They voted entirely new politicians in who promised to bring the good times back.
Wait. Why did they vote the entire government out in Greece?
Because they were doing austerity, and the people were not happy
Are you sure it was because they were doing austerity, or is it because the government in Greece was unimaginably fucking corrupt, and that was one of the reasons why they had so much economic trouble, because they cooked their books to join the EU? Do you think they just voted them out because they didn't want to give them free stuff?
Well, there's corruption in any system that has basically
no. There's not. Do you okay? Let me ask you this: do you think the level of corruption in the Greek system was comparable to other EU member countries?
Oh, they were probably more corrupt. My
like
point
the
is
most corrupt of all EU countries. So don't say it's comparable. Like
again, I don't have. Yeah, no, yeah. I think. Well, no, I don't. Never mind. I take that back. The point is that the politicians were voted. Let's just say they was for corruption, but they campaigned on restoring these cuts, the austerity, the forced austerity cuts. And then when they got into office, they were told, no, you can't restore these programs. You have to have austerity or you're going to go bankrupt. So there's a limit to when push comes to shove, you can vote all you want, but you can't overturn the laws of economics. So eventually these programs will go bankrupt and people will suffer. And that's the unfortunate reality of it. Just I'd like to do better. Now, if we have the problem is having a constitution, having even an amendment. Amendments can be ignored. Look at the 10th Amendment. The government just like reinterprets certain sections to give themselves new powers that were never there, ignoring the 10th Amendment because they want to do something and they just twist the Constitution to do what it wants. A document can never secure your freedom because it's just a piece of paper. Power checks power.
Yeah, I think what Destiny's getting at is he's saying that like you guys are both proposing hypothetical scenarios, right? Because in reality, your system will never happen, and Destiny's amendment will never happen. So we're talking in the abstract and the hypothetical. So he's saying,
okay, well,
like,
yeah,
go ahead.
But okay, so yes, you could put it in a constitutional amendment, but at the end of the day, only power checks power. So you have to have, just like with you need checks and balances within the government, you need checks and balances within the people, so that people don't just overrun the system and for their own benefit. So a piece of paper, a document can never do that. Like think about over the last 100 years, whenever the government has come in and taken the people's freedom away and give themselves new power, it's always during a crisis. And they always promise that after the crisis is over, they're going to lay these powers down, and they never do. Like once your freedom is taken under some crisis, it's never restored. And unfortunately, because people like there was a crisis, they didn't
what about
say
internment
no.
camps in World War II for Asian people? What about the draft that happened for multiple wars?
Yeah, what about it?
The government has done things and taken power and given it back, but I mean, it's going to depend on what people vote on, no?
Well, yeah, I think they acknowledge that the Japanese. Well, yeah, I mean,
what about the easing of COVID restrictions that people said would never change?
Well, those are okay. Those are very extreme circumstances. Like, yeah, the COVID restriction thing, that's a whole other kettle of fish. I'm talking about like the power, like there was, man, you know what? I don't want to get into because I don't have the sources. Doesn't matter. So yes, the government can do something and then say like, okay, well now the COVID restrictions are being lifted, but they reserve the right to basically lock you down again. In fact, I think, I don't remember who it is. It's either the EU or the CDC wanting to basically coordinate with the international body to basically coordinate lockdowns, essentially like taking power away from Congress and giving it to an unelected bureaucracy to basically like lock the country down again. And then it was proven that the lockdowns didn't even do anything. They just destroyed the economy.
That's not true. Hold on, that's not true. What do you mean it's proven the lockdowns didn't do anything? Also, the idea of unelected officials. I mean, like we don't elect every single official in our government, but like most of them are nominated by like elected officials. So,
well, they're usually just hired. Like you have these branches of the government, not even branches, they're departments, and they're staffed. And I understand why. Like Congress always wants to empower the executive because they don't want their fingerprints on it. And then the executive, they pass things on to these bureaucracies, so they don't have their fingers on it.
Wait, no, hold on. This is just called the basic division of powers in the United States government. The Congress doesn't pass things up because they don't want their fingers on it. Congress passes things up because they're not the enforcement mechanism of our government. That's what the executive branch is for.
But they don't want to they don't want the people to be mad at them. They want the people to be mad at someone else.
So you're talking about every single human in existence. But I mean, like, what?
Right.
But they don't pass things off. Like, of course, Congress doesn't enforce laws. That's what the executive branch does.
Well, no, but the executive branch has all these like myriad departments full of nobody who's like you can't like recall these things. That basically they serve more or less at the behest of the president, who can supposedly fire them. Sometimes there's lawsuits and it doesn't happen for some reason. But
But these
ostensibly,
departments that are created are usually created at the behest of Congress, right? Like Congress will entrust the president, the executive, with the ability to do something, and then a department might be created for that enforcement mechanism. It's not, they don't just like randomly like appear out of nowhere.
no, I'm not saying I'm not saying it randomly appears out of nowhere. I'm saying that they want the actual like the people are going to be mad at. They want those people far away from where they can actually affect change, because the body of the government that's more affected by change is the House, because they have to run for re-election every 2 years. So if the people are mad, a lot of congressmen are going to lose their job. So congressmen don't like to make choices. They want to kick the can down the road and make someone else make that choice.
Like, what? Can you give me one example of that? What does that mean? Kick the can down the road.
Well, they don't want to do something controversial that's going to cost them their job. So
Like what?
they don't want to stop the president. They don't want to like declare something, or like let's say declare
stop
war.
the president.
Like,
what do you mean declare? Like, don't we vote on?
I'm using an example like declaring war. We haven't declared an actual war since World War II.
Didn't we vote on the authorize the use of military force? Wasn't that from Congress? I feel like I watched people in Congress debating whether or not to authorize.
That was in Congress thing. Yeah,
that wasn't a declaration.
Might not have been
war,
a declaration of war, but it wasn't a declaration of war. But it was an authorization of use of military force.
Right, and then there's I think Biden right now he's using some old. There was like I don't have it in front of me. There's something I don't remember the name of it. There's something like where it empowers him to do fact finding. And this was passed for a completely different conflict, I think in Syria. And he's using that to justify sending people into Ukraine without going to the House and actually having, Congress as a say. Because if we're going to start World War III, the president shouldn't just be doing things unilaterally using old
He's not.
things.
Aren't all of these aid packages being approved by Congress?
The aid packages are, I'm talking like boots on the ground.
We don't have boots on the ground in Ukraine. But yeah, the United... We don't.
We have special forces.
What do you mean by special forces?
We have military special forces. I could look it up if you want. If you need the sort, you know what?
Are you talking about like private citizens who like choose on their own to go there?
No, he's talking about there was a weird Intercept article that was the only article of any of the media to report that there are supposedly some special forces people in Ukraine, which there might be. They're literally the only people that have reported on that.
Well, like U.S. military.
I'm using this as a single. You asked for an example. Here's an example of.
Well, no, but I'm just getting at the idea that there's a division of powers. So, like, if you want to start bringing up war-related stuff, then yeah, the president has a lot of deference there. But that's because the president is the commander in chief. That's his job. Yes. So of course the president has wide deference over a lot of stuff, but you're talking about like Congress doesn't want responsibility. And you talk about like Congress, like taking, you're talking about the government, like taking things from citizens, like the Patriot Act that came from Congress. The Iraq war, the authorization for use of military force came from Congress. Aid going to Ukraine comes from Congress. Like, I think it's just like a misreading of like all the facts. I don't think anything you're saying is like, in reality.
Right. So I was using that as one example because you asked for a specific example. So I gave you a specific example. But the first example was there was talk, this didn't happen, but there was talk of the CDC coordinating with European counterparts to basically enact. Now, this would have been passed by Congress, but Congress was basically not offshoring. They were basically delegating their authority to the CDC to have people who aren't accountable to the people. Like the people can't do anything about if the CDC makes a bad call, the people can't really do anything about it. They can call their congressman and they can wag their finger at them on the camera.
Of course you can. No, if the CDC does something bad, then that's going to reflect poorly on the party that's supporting the CDC. Are you telling me that like when people were upset with Fauci, you don't think they voted against like the idea of Fauci and the party that supported him? Also, these people are appointed oftentimes by the president at the approval of like the Senate. Like we might not vote on every single member of every single executive agency, but of course they reflect on the administration in office.
Well, they reflect, but the people, like, what if they like, for example, they like Biden they like Biden for one reason, but they're really mad at him for a different reason, but they can't do anything about it. It's basically a package deal. So like you can vote, you can reelect Biden, you can't do anything about Fauci, you can't do anything about all these other people that you don't like, but maybe you like Biden for other reasons, or maybe you just really hate Republicans. So
That's
you're going to vote for
every
the
single
Democrat.
thing in every single
Right.
area of our
So
lives. You can't vote, but we're not going to vote down the line on every single issue of our government. Our voter turnout already sucks. We're not going to vote on every single nominee. That's just not how our government works, and it wouldn't work. That would be ineffective.
I was just bringing up the point that when you have politicians who are accountable to the people, they don't like to have their fingerprints on stuff. They want to have other people be the bearer of bad news, or whatever euphemism you want. That way, they're the ones who get the heat. Now, sure, it reflects on the party, but it's just very quickly forgotten. We have a system that it's structured in a way to basically make sure that everyone hates the parties. Nobody, but the politicians, their approval numbers couldn't be lower, but their reelection numbers couldn't be higher. And so that's the system we
We
have.
literally just had a huge like upset in the prior elections. I don't know what you're talking. I don't know, but okay. I mean, okay.
I want when you guys are done with this topic, I want to redirect to a different topic that I think the audience will find more interesting. But I don't want to.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So this is something me and TFM were discussing when he came on my channel. I guess a year ago, was it, or 6 months ago? But anyway, so this was something I personally disagree with TFM on. But he believes that dating in the West is not worth it because of the potential risks, like false rape accusations and stuff like that.
Yeah, he wants to go to Romania. Yeah.
I think you guys are going to have massive disagreements on that, but yeah, I'll kick it off there.
Where's the disagreement? It's personal. Like, everyone has their own level of risk tolerance. They value companionship greater or lesser. Like, if you feel like you absolutely need, like, having a family or having a relationship is super important to you, and you're willing to risk everything for it, you're going to take more risks than somebody who, sure, having a relationship would be nice, having a family would be nice, but they value their freedom more, they value other things more. It's ultimately subjective. So we might disagree, but you can't objectively prove or disprove subjective values.
No, I think, like, for example, I would argue that you're completely overblowing the risk, that the risks aren't nearly as high as you say you are. And I think that would be probably Destiny's position as well, although I don't know.
I mean, how many men are getting like false rape accusations? Like,
let me give you a thought experiment, if you will. So let's say I contact you, and I want to open a business with you. I want to be partners with you. And so here's how the contract's going to work. You're going to put up all the seed money for the business. We're going to share the profits 50-50. I can leave any time. I get to keep all the IP, and you have to pay my salary for the rest of my life. Are you interested in forming this business?
Oh my God. Are you describing alimony?
Yes, I know. You saw through my tricksy trick.
Yeah. So the reason why alimony is paid is because historically there is an issue where women forego careers in order to build families and empower the husband to continue his career. Husbands can oftentimes go through the labor market unimpeded by the children they have because they've got a wife that's willing to make a career sacrifice to stay at home to take care of the children. So if it is the case that a husband and a wife divorce and a wife has foregone a career in order to take care of the children, it's probably not the worst thing in the world that some level of alimony would be awarded there. I don't think that's a bad thing. Also, alimony is only awarded in 10% of divorces. It's not this like huge problem all across the United States. And also, if you're going to make the claim that like women are divorcing just for alimony, like again, it'd be cool to see a study on that, but I know you don't have one. Yeah,
I'm not making that claim. My point is you would not form that partnership with me, not because you hate me. Maybe we're war buddies and you trust me. It's just that arrangement is horribly unfair. And
that arrangement doesn't resemble marriage either, though.
Well, it kind of does, because
it absolutely does not. What do you mean?
Okay, well, so the husband basically provides the income. It's the seed money for the business. The children are jointly owned, but the wife can leave the marriage, and they're her kids. The guy might get visitation, but basically gay couples
get taking care of the children.
Well, the mother is. Now, historically, it didn't work, but it's fine. I don't even want to get into historical.
Well, so hold on. So if the mother is taking care of the children, how is the husband providing the income? Mm-hmm. Why is the husband able to provide the income?
Well, because he has to pay child support.
No, 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 no,
That's
no.
the
In a marriage, in a nuclear family marriage, why is the husband able to provide the income?
because he's the one working.
How is he able to work when he's got 2 kids?
Right. Well, there's different arrangements they could have, but generally the wife will stay home and take care of the kids so
Okay,
the
there you
husband can
go.
work.
That's why
Right.
when you
So
look at
they,
the income made by a family, it's really stupid to say the husband earns that much money. It's not the husband earning it. This is why marriages are partnerships. It's the husband and the wife. The only reason a husband is empowered to his maximum earning potential while still having children is because the mother is empowering him to have that job by staying home and foregoing her career to take care of children. The only way the husband is not making 150,000 on his own while the wife stays home and takes care of the kids. He can only make 150,000 because the wife is staying home and taking care of the kids.
So the thing is they're still her kids after the divorce. Like I know gay couples is different. Straight couples, it usually is the mother gets primary custody and the father gets visitation. Whereas with gay couples, it's usually 50-50 joint custody. That's just how it works. I don't have a source though, so you can call me a liar or something. The thing
Sure,
is
we can talk about like the unfairness or et cetera after divorce. Right. Typically, when a divorce court is ruling, though, they're probably going to rule what's in the best interest of the child. The father hasn't taken care of the kids at all. It's not surprising that the mother's going to get them, and there might be some like welfare arrangement, whether it's alimony or child support after that. But that's a separate conversation. I'm just saying that how you originally described marriage was not at all like a business where one person is providing all the seed capital and everybody else is just a fucking leech. That's not true. Well, the wife is an equal partner, an equal worker to the husband.
No. So in the business analogy I used, if I form a business with you and you provide the seed money, I'm working at the business. I'm earning a salary. I'm working. I'm helping grow the business. I just didn't bring any of the income into the relationship. You brought the income, but then the IPs we create, the intellectual property, I get to take those with me if I leave, and then you have to pay my salary. It's very analogous. And the thing is, no one would take that deal in business. Everyone would know that's a really biased, unfair deal. Now, maybe if that's the law and like you really trust somebody, maybe you're willing to take that risk. Like, you know what? I trust you. We've been through thick and thin. I know you're not going to do me like that. So I'm willing to take this risk and enter in this relationship. And I trust you that it will all work out. And there are plenty of marriages that don't end in divorce and they last for decades, and their great grandchildren dance with them at their 75th wedding anniversary. But then there's also the opposite where you do have divorce, and it's a bad system. But if it's important enough to you, you can go ahead and do that. You have to subjectively determine how important this family and this relationship is to you, and what you're willing to risk and what you're willing to pay. Just like everything is subjective value. Like some people may want a sports car or beachfront property. Some people may not care. Like if they're offered a free sports car and beachfront property, they take it. But when they see the price tag, they're not willing to pay that price. Other people would be willing to pay that price. So there's really there's really no room to disagree. It's just subjective value. If you want to pay the price, pay the price. If I don't want to pay the price, I'm not wrong. It's just I don't value that enough to pay that price.
Yeah, but TFM, what if the woman makes more money than you? Doesn't the whole thing go out the window then, right?
Well, hypothetically, the problem is human nature. So when the wife out earns the husband, you basically have a 75% chance of getting divorced. Like the base divorce rate is 50. I'm sorry, I don't have the sources in front of me. You can disbelieve everything I'm saying, but the base divorce rate is about 50%. But then when the woman out earns the man, and this could happen down the road, like maybe the husband and wife met at work and they were both more or less earning the same amount of money, but due to like diversity quota hires, she gets promoted above him. She ends up out earning him. The likelihood of divorce goes up by 50%. Now you have a 75%.
But then wouldn't you benefit from the divorce, right?
You would think so. And in some rare cases, usually with celebrities, like with Britney Spears' ex-husband, he got a nice settlement because he was just like a backup dancer and she was Britney Spears. But generally, even if the wife is the bread earner and the husband earns significantly less money, even if he's a stay-at-home husband, he's very rarely awarded the kinds of things that women get awarded if the roles were reversed, simply because the system is biased towards women. And in cases where guys do get a settlement, Women just raise hell, and there's all kinds of articles about how the family court system is broken, needs to be reformed. It's just and I understand it's human nature. Like, men are hardwired to want to protect and provide for women, and women have kind of an own group preference. So it doesn't surprise me that society cares about the needs and desires of women more than men. I'm just saying that's the system that exists. And all things being equal, if human nature were, if men and women were just, different genital versions of each other and didn't have different natures and wants and desires, yeah, being a sugar baby to some, woman who's making a lot of money, that should work. It just doesn't, because when women out earn men,
so just curious, when women out earn men, why are they more likely to break up?
Well, the word is hypergamy. It's when women they want to. Basically, men want men are attracted to a woman's attractiveness, youth, fertility, like basically her form. Women are primarily attracted to a man's function. They're looking for not just a man who's attractive, but a man who can provide a certain lifestyle, who has, status and wealth and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. If you look at animals, it works the same way.
So this is this is just random stuff you've read. Okay. So the paper that you're pulling this from, is you have no data for any of this, but that's fine.
Crazy.
Okay. So there is a 2013 paper by the University of Chicago. The researcher's name is Marianne Bertrand. Okay. And she's the one that developed this number that you have a 50% higher likelihood of divorce if the woman is outing her husband. One of the findings of this paper, though, is, moreover, I quote, wives who earn more often end up doing more of the household chores, not less. Data from the American Time Use Survey covering the years of 2003 to 2011 show that while husbands spend an average of 20.8 hours a week on non-market work and childcare, wives spent 33.5 hours on those activities. One explanation for this, the research suggests, is that a wife making more money is doing more chores to assuage her husband's unease. But serving as both the primary breadwinner and the primary homemaker may be draining. That, the researchers point out, may be one of the mechanisms behind our results on divorce. Do you think if I go through the rest of this paper, I'm going to find anything on hypergamy?
Oh, probably not.
Okay. Do you have any research showing that the reason why women who out-earn husbands are more likely to divorce is because of hypergamy, or are these just more like YouTube talking points?
Well, I mean, there are anecdotal. I don't have the studies. So
okay, gotcha.
They're right. So it's fine. Here we are again. It's fine. But yeah, it's human nature. You can be like, where's the study? Where's the study? It's like, okay.
I mean, why would you need a study when we can just say it's human nature, right?
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, it's fine. That's just, you don't have to believe me.
Okay, I won't. I'm good.
There you go. Fair enough.
Yeah, apparently.
So, I guess we're done here. No, there's nothing else. I mean, that was the topic. I don't have the peer-reviewed studies in front of me. So I guess hypergamy doesn't exist.
Are you denying that hypergamy exists, Destiny?
What is hypergamy? That women tend to marry up when it comes to monetary status?
Yeah, the women tend to date up. Yeah,
they tend to, but that's a trend that's been reversing pretty significantly over the past, I think, 20 years.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's been it hasn't reversed, but it's going lower and lower. Like, if somebody can link me the I think it was a PubMed one, but I think it was I want to say 20 or 30 years ago, it was 50% of women would never date down socioeconomically, and I think that number's in 33% now. So it's slowly following the. If somebody has the link in chat, I can find it. I don't have that offhand.
Because everything I've seen is that it's actually going the other direction. It's getting worse, not better, due to unrealistic expectations, social media, and whatnot. But I'd be curious to see what study you're referring to.
I'll try to find it.
Okay, what about this TFM? I don't know if this came up during our first debate or not, but this is kind of one thing that I take issue with the MGTOW community. I feel like they really greatly over-exaggerate the risk of false rape accusations. Whenever I kind of deep dived into this, I looked at the statistics. Apparently, it's something like you're as likely to get struck by lightning as you are to get convicted of false rape charge.
Right. I was falsely accused of rape. I wasn't convicted.
Right.
But I was falsely accused of rape, and it ruined my social life, and my entire social life was ruined. Now, I wasn't arrested. I wasn't convicted. I didn't go to jail. But she spread these rumors that I had raped her, and it completely destroyed my social life. People who were my friends just automatically believed her. People were trying to jump me. and nothing happened to her. The reason why I stopped it, I had to actually get on my knees and apologize. I called her some names because she cheated on me. And so her revenge was to spread this rumor that I had raped her, to try to like get random guys to kick my ass. And I had to basically apologize and grovel. And she admitted, okay, yeah, it didn't happen. But even after she admitted it wasn't true. It's like the lie gets halfway around the world before the truth puts on its pants. So my social life was still destroyed. So yes, the conviction rate is fairly low. It's fairly low for a man to go to jail under a false rape accusation. Usually women don't go that far.
It's super low, right?
It's pretty low. Again, I don't have the study. I don't have the numbers. I'm just talking out of my ass.
The thing I linked you is a 2016 from the population. I think it's Population and Development Review is the journal. But in this, they basically look at trends around the world of women that are marrying men that are earning less than them. And I can read part of the abstract. We present findings from an almost comprehensive world-level analysis using census and survey microdata from 420 samples in 120 countries spanning from 1960 to 2011, which allow us to assert that the reversal of the gender gap in education is strongly associated with the end of hypergamy and increase in hypogamy, or hypogamy. Wives have more education than their husbands. We not only provide near universal evidence of this trend, but extend our analysis to consider the implications of the end of hypergamy for family dynamics, outcomes, and gender equality, which are on blah, 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 blah. If you want to go through that sometime.
That sounds though like it's just saying that women are making more money now, which obviously everyone knows. Women are getting better education, but I don't think that's indicative of women changing their dating preferences, right?
I have a question. Now, is it just looking at educational attainment? Because sure, women are getting more advanced degrees, but a lot of times, like they get a master's degree in like lesbian dance therapy, and then they marry like a tradesman who's earning six figures. And she's,
oh my God, I bet the researchers had no idea. That's crazy. So if you actually click the little link I sent you, I'm sure that you can probably go to Sci-Hub and like get the full study, but you can look at figure 3 here and it'll say proportion of wives earning more than half of the total household income by relative education of husband and wife. And you can see that trend increasing across, I think, every single country that they graph here. Observations include married as well as unmarried cohabitating couples where at least one or both partners earn some income. Surprisingly, they must have considered the fact that every woman is getting a degree in lesbian dance theory, I guess. Amazing.
Well, I'm pointing out that there are women who do have advanced degrees who they still don't earn as much as their husband, who may not have a degree at all, maybe went to trade school, just as a hypothetical.
Sure, that's great. It just has nothing to do with what I said. It's just like a random, like, what if this crazy thing all the researchers overlooked because I have no data and now there's data that's in the contrary? I understand you have that assertion. If you can show me a study or link me some kind of peer-reviewed thing or link me anything besides check a chart, then it would be interesting to look at.
Yeah, again, so I remember there's an article I covered back in the day about Mongolia where because they're traditional herdsmen, and so the men did the farm work and they sent the women to college, and then the Mongolian women didn't want to marry the Mongolian men because they considered themselves better than them after they were college educated. I don't have the link. I just remember it from a couple of years back. I covered it on my show, but it's fine. Just an anecdote, doesn't prove anything.
Okay, here you go. I searched. I'll help you because I do know how to use Google. You're probably talking about this Guardian article right here. Too smart, too successful. Mongolia's superwomen struggle to find husbands. Is this probably the article you were referring to?
Yeah, sounds correct.
Oh,
yeah,
save that link. You can use it in your next argument. There you go.
Well, no, I'm just pointing out that this hypergamy is a thing. Women.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with TFM on that. I mean, I would say the article that you provide, Destiny, is showing that women are getting better education and women are becoming more equal to men, which I think, again, no one's disputing that. But I don't think it's indicative of anything of women's dating habits. I mean, this kind of
but it literally shows that women are earning, that a greater percentage of women are earning a majority of the income in the household. So that is a reversal in trends of women earning.
Yeah, men were here, women are here, right? Now they're getting over here, right? But that doesn't mean that women don't want to date over here, right? That's why there's a lot more single people nowadays, right? Because women are like, oh shit, I can't find that guy that makes like fucking 7 figures or something like that, right? So just because women are going up in terms of their economic prosperity doesn't mean that their dating standards.
No. If it is the figure 3 is proportion of wives earning more than half of total household income. So it is them dating here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Keep in mind, also, hold on.
missed that
Like,
part.
I'll be like reasonable. I will agree that there is going to be these trends historically, of course, and it might take a while for them to reverse. But that's probably because historically, right, until like a couple generations ago, or really even one generation ago, women haven't had access to the same types of labor opportunities as men. So women kind of had to look for guys that earned money because they didn't have those economic opportunities available to them. But as they've had more of those economic opportunities available to them, then they're probably going to, like, I would expect to see dating habits start to change in the future accordingly, right?
I mean, this is kind of anecdotal. When you watch like pretty much any like whatever show, like you watch what's his name, Kevin Samuels when he was alive, like pretty much every single girl that calls in is like, yeah, you know, I want a 6-figure guy. Now, of course, that's not like representative of every single girl because that's a pretty niche group of audience.
Sure.
But they're like we can't deny that there's a significant percentage of women that want to date up.
That's true, but like anecdotally, I see a lot of fat fucking losers on Reddit that say that Pokemon isn't like sexually attractive for them to fuck. So I mean, like anecdotally, like everybody has like fucking stupid standards out the wazoo when it comes to dating shit. I mean,
well, there's also people getting married when they're older. Like back in the day, people used to get married in their 20s. Now people tend to get married in like their mid 30s or older. So they're further along in their career. Maybe they realize like, okay, I got to like be more realistic. Maybe they're not looking for the guy who's 6 foot tall with a 6-figure salary. Maybe we're just looking for someone who's like.
Wait, you think that's why they're putting off getting married? Do you think it's just because they think they're looking for their Giga Chad princes in their 20s?
Or they're just having fun, enjoying their youth, and they think they have plenty of time to settle down later.
Do you think that maybe it's just because they're able to work and they've got economic opportunity available to them? They don't have to like pair off with some schizoid man when they're 21 years old because otherwise they have no future. Like maybe women are just able to work and have greater reproductive freedom. So they're able to wait a little bit longer to get married because they don't want to like completely like obligate their whole life when they're 22 to raising a family.
I mean, that may be part of their thinking. It's just the problem is.
So let's say if I Google reasons why women get married later, what do we think is going to come up if I look for this?
Oh yeah, it's their careers. Of course. It's not really about the quality of men. Anyway,
Okay.
Shit. No, I lost my train of thought. Never mind. I was going to say something, but I got derailed. So it's fine.
Well, take a second, think on it. I think Lead Attorney wants to jump on too. He's in the chat. I'm curious whose side he's going to take here. What were you going to say, TFM?
I didn't prepare my sources, so there really
you literally
is no.
charted me. You had charts. You threw charts at me. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about.
Well, I mean, those are charts I just have in a folder. I just didn't. I don't have my sources. I should dig them up. I'll have a nice indexed Word document next time.
Yo, Lead, I dropped a link in the chat if you want to come on. Yeah, I mean, I think what's it called? So okay, so DFM, you think that hypergamy is how much, like, if you had to put a number in, like, how significant do you think it is?
Well, I think that men and women just have certain, like, it has to do, again, it has to do with human nature and the reproductive roles. Men are the protectors and the providers. Women are the bearers of children. Women look for someone who's going to protect and provide for the offspring, and men are looking for someone young and fertile and healthy in order to produce healthy offspring. These are just instincts. You see this in animals. You see this everywhere. So the problem is, now I remember what I was going to say. Fertility windows haven't changed. Like you see this big uptick in women freezing their eggs because they're getting higher education, but this is literally like I wouldn't say wasting, but they're using up their prime fertility window. And maybe they spend their early to mid 20s going to college, and they spend their late 20s getting established in their new career. They start thinking about, okay, now that I'm established and I'm ready to go, now I'm ready to have a family. But now they've missed their prime fertility window, and now they're going to have less healthy offspring. They're going to have fewer kids. And educational attainment doesn't change the facts of biology. Like the fertility window, it's fixed. You can freeze your eggs, but a lot of women are finding out that their frozen eggs don't work even after they try to have the procedures done with IVF. So that's not really a women's fault. I've seen articles about women saying that they were misled and they weren't told, like they thought they had like the silver like ticket. They could just bypass their youth and build their business. And then when they were in their late 40s or 50s, they would be able to have kids, no problem. And, now they regret it. It is what it is. There's just consequences for that. Like, I mean, this is a little bit of a digression. I think would be a better system personally is if women they basically had their kids when they were young and healthy and fertile, so they could have healthy offspring. And then once their kids are in school, like when your youngest turns 5 and he's going to school, now you have several hours during the day. You could start your career then.
That's not even possible. Why?
No, it is. You just have instead of going to college in your 20s, wasting your fertility window, you go to college in your mid 30s after your kids are all grown up and going to school.
Most people can't just take like 10 years of a break and just hop back into things, right? There's a reason why no man would ever fucking make this choice. I would never make this choice, right? You're 19 years old, time to forego like arguably some of the most important career and educational years of your life to do a family, and hopefully in 10 years you can go back to it. Like, it's a pretty unrealistic expectation.
Adults go to college all the time. Like,
they don't all the time. Children go to college all the time. Sometimes adults return to college, but
right. Well, no, I went to college in the evening. I didn't go for the college experience. I went in the evening, and most of the people I was in class with were adults who were furthering their education.
Because you're in evening class, yeah, of course.
Right. So but that should be the norm. That women have healthy families when they're young.
Wait, you can have children when you're 30 and 35. You can still have kids. They don't come out like deformed, right? I think like 35 is when like can't what?
Well, yes, but the likelihood of complications increase, and you have fewer kids, and that's affecting all kinds of things.
Hold on, not everybody wants to have like 12 kids. I think most people are okay with like 2 or 3. If you want to have a fuck ton, then yeah, you got to start early. But you can start having kids at like 30, 35 years old. They're probably going to be okay, right? Once you start hitting like 35 and beyond, it starts to get a little bit sweatier.
I'm kind of curious what lead attorney wants to.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's interesting. You know, shout out to you guys. Y'all might not know who I am. I'm the lead attorney. I'm a 20-year divorce attorney down here in Atlanta, Georgia. My whole adult career, I've been dealing with these issues of parenting and divorce and alimony. So it's interesting to hear how you guys talk about it. Destiny, one of the things that I hear you, it seems that you're pretty persuasive when you talk about these studies and things like that. And I understand the impetus to really look for hard data when you talk about things. And generally, I think that's very important. But when you start talking about data for these types of issues, the reason why people get divorced, the reason why people have children, things of that nature, how many people cheat, when you rely on this self-reporting, it's amazing how unreliable the data is. And so I don't know if you can really quote any study that would be conclusive on these issues.
What do you think would be a better metric, in your opinion?
Well, that's the issue, right? Because you certainly don't want to rely on anecdotal evidence, right? But relying on self-reported studies is crazy. And I can tell you that as a 20-year attorney, having to talk to women and men about their relationships. I mean, you can ask somebody how much they make, and maybe they'll tell you the truth. You know, maybe if you have to look at their W-2s. Judges don't even believe people when they tell them how much they make. Like, judges insist on taxes, insist on W-2s, insist on 1099s. So if you have these studies that don't insist on anything, like, there's no reason to rely on those at all.
Then do we just make up whatever reason like fits like the YouTube channel narrative more, or what? I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Like, we use self-reporting for like crime victimization is on self-reporting. Like, we use self-reporting for a lot of studies in psychology. I guess, do we just throw all of that out? I agree with you that there might be some limitations in the data, but I mean, like, if you do study after study after study and there's trend after trend after trend, and you can't find like any other explanatory thing for why people report the things they do, I mean, at some point it's like, okay, well, self-reporting is kind of the only way, you know, to go forward other than stories.
I mean, you can say that self-reporting is the best that we have, but that doesn't mean that it's accurate at all. That doesn't mean that it's deserving to be relied upon. You can just say, hey, this is all we got. You know, back in 2000 BC, you know, hey, religion, that's all we got. So we're going to rely on that, and fine. Well, to that point, maybe there's this thing called gravity. Maybe there's this thing called, you know, astrophysics. Maybe there are things going on that we don't know yet. And so that's what I'm telling you. Like, judges don't even rely on the stuff that you guys are talking about. Not you guys, I'm talking about Destiny specifically with these studies.
Well, hold on. For me specifically, income was not, I don't think that was, I don't actually know if it was self-reported. Are you saying that they're lying about their income on the studies?
Are they showing the scientists or who the data collectors their W-2s and their taxes? Or are they telling them, do you make between 50 and 75,000? Do you make between 75,000 and 100? Are they just typing that into their keypad on their phone? Because
I mean, my guess is going to be it's self-reported, but like,
even we attorneys, we don't even believe our own fucking clients to be. I don't know if I can
comparing an attorney to a study is a totally different thing, though, right? You're litigating
not, because it's all data collection.
No. It's not data collection. You're not collecting data as an attorney. You're getting specific information about a specific case.
That's data.
Right? Yeah, but
information.
But when you're trying to make a case, I don't know if you're a trial attorney or what, but like when you're trying to make a case in front of a judge and the judge is asking you like, did your client cheat on his wife? Like you would never respond to it. Well, 47% of clients do. No, of course not. You're doing like a case study. When you're doing like, that's what an attorney does, is case studies. Like the whole discovery process is collecting data about one particular case. Right? Or maybe you'll bring in an expert witness for random shit. But like, it's not the same as like talking in a scientific manner or in a sociological manner, but like, here's like data across the society. So yeah, I would expect like a judge to be using more specific stuff where they're going to subpoena shit and everything, or they're going to have like more specific stuff to one case. But that's because you're arguing about one particular person, not an entire field.
Yeah, but the entire field is made up of each individual case study, if you want to call it that, Destiny. That's all data is. It's just a collection of individual case studies, if you want to call it that. That's all it is. Like you're elevating it to something higher than what it really is.
I think there's to defend Destiny. I think relying on hard data, that's a very healthy thing to do, because for the most part.
Let me jump in though, because you said to defend Destiny. I don't know if you heard when I first began. I said that there's a reason to try to rely on this stuff. I love relying on science. That's what we should rely on. My point, TFM, is that there are going to be certain areas where just the data is inconclusive. The data is not going to be there.
I agree.
I totally am in favor of the scientific method. I think it's awesome. But what I'm telling you as a 20-year divorce attorney is that when you start asking people how much they make, or why they cheated, or if they cheated, or how much sex they get, you're going to start getting some self-reported information that's not reliable.
Okay. Well, it looks like this study that I was citing earlier, the gender identity and relative income within households, seem to be using census data. So at least we didn't have to rely on self-reporting for that one, I believe. So
I'll post that in the chat. Here it is. All right, Lead. So as an attorney, what's your take on hypergamy? Like, how often when you do divorces do you see that at least part of the reason is the woman wants to trade up?
100%. Yeah. It's hard to say 100% of the time, but I think TFM is exactly right. Just because the environment, well, let me specify that, because I think TFM has said a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. But when he talks about just because, what's that?
You were so close.
I was so close, right? Just because the society has changed and women have more power in the workplace, more economic power, they're getting, higher education, things of that nature. It does not change their genetics at all. And I totally see the reflection of how men will put women on pedestals. Men will really want kids. And the majority of men, not all kids, not all men. Some men hate kids, all right? Some men hate women. But just talking about, if you look at a bell curve, kind of what's in the middle, I see all the time how men will kind of focus in on the actual woman and feel a certain way about her, whereas the women will focus on other things. The women will focus on the kids, and they'll focus on the husband's resources. And I don't think that's a new occurrence. I don't think that just because a particular woman earns more, she's going to focus less on that. And I deal with women who make $2,000 a month and women who make $80,000 a month. And, the hypergamy is there. It's just there. It's biological. Now you can say, well, can you cite a study to this? And I can't. And because I don't trust those studies at all, because I've been doing this for 2 decades. Right. But this is what I see. And I totally agree with you that your genetics, I don't know if you said this, but your genetics are your genetics. And it doesn't matter kind of what your economic prowess is for a man or for a woman.
Would you say hypergamy is getting worse or getting better? in your opinion?
I don't know why it would change. Why are we
Yeah,
saying that it's changing?
constant.
There could be any number of reasons why it would make it change. Like, for example, now that you start practicing law before social media, right? Now there's social media, so girls are seeing, their friends on Instagram going to Dubai, and they're like, oh, maybe I should date myself a guy who's whatever higher status or something like that. I mean, there could be any number of reasons. Yeah,
No,
I
I disagree.
have
Go
a
ahead,
take on
TMS.
this. All right, so I look at women and men have different natures, and it's related to their reproductive roles. Men have what I call a dominance instinct, and women have a hypergamous instinct. Look at animals. The males will fight each other to establish a habitat, some kind of like area that they control. They'll drive all the other males away, and then the strongest males will have the best kind of area, and then the females will go where the best area is, and they'll settle down with those males. And that's just how animals are, and you can kind of see the similar behaviors in humans, where males compete. I call the dominance instinct. It's why men are always competing with each other, wrestling, climbing mountains, doing speed runs. It's just they want to feel better than other men, and women.
I don't think.
Women
Has there ever been a history in human society where males are driving away other males and ruling over like legions of women? Has this ever happened?
Yes, called harems.
So you're talking about like the ultra wealthy elite, like less than 1% of 1% of society is where it happens.
Well, it's because they're the warlords. So you have the
warlords.
Yeah. So the men who control the most martial power, they're the ones who acquire the harems.
Yeah, but they're not doing it because they have resources and the women are attracted to it, right? They're doing it because they can essentially like enslave the women.
But the women go for it. Like
they have to. They had no
look
rights.
At sister wives. You don't see the opposite. Well, look at sister wives. Like women are fine sharing a husband. The inverse isn't true. Like these whole brother husband deals where all the guys share a girl. It usually doesn't end well because it's basic biology. If a man has many wives, he can potentially impregnate all of them each year and have one kid per woman. Whereas if a woman has multiple husbands, she can only reproduce one of them per year. And there might be one of the husbands who just never has a kid, and he's going to feel like completely like he wasted his time in this relationship. It's eggs are more valuable than sperm, and women are a commodity. And that's
we can always appeal to the biology, but the reality is women were part of those harems because they had no rights. A lot of them couldn't own property, they couldn't vote, they couldn't work. So of course the guys with the resources are essentially allowed to like enslave like tons of women and say like, hey, you're like the protected aristocracy. Now you're going to be like part of this particular protected harem because the men like had all the power. But it's not because they were attracted to it. Like, and I don't think you see very many successful relationships where it's like one guy and multiple women. That's an incredibly, exceedingly rare thing. That's like a 1% of a 1% thing. So to just say that it's just biology when it's unimaginably rare, it seems to not be the case. That seems to be the exception more than the rule.
But could it be exceptionally rare because a very few percentage of guys are actually able to maintain that because they have actually the kind of game, status, whatever?
It's probably exceptionally rare because I don't think most women want a guy dividing themselves between 5 different moms, between 5 different kids. I don't think most women would want that.
If he can afford
most
it,
women don't want that, but it's not exceptionally, exceedingly rare either. I mean,
that one man has multiple wives at the same time.
Okay,
not in Western countries. Well, because during
in the United States, that's usually illegal, right? Legally you can only go ahead, TM.
Well, yeah, you have the Mormons who have their own little compounds, but this actually started with the Roman Catholic Church in the Middle Ages because originally you had polygamy in the Bible, but then Rome had monogamy, and so that was kind of superimposed over Christianity, and that's just been the Western tradition. But if you go to Muslim countries, they could have 4 wives. That's like part of their culture. You have plenty of guys with multiple wives. It's not even. I wouldn't
wait,
say.
Can you name what one just so I can look that up? Which Muslim country right now has like a lot of people with multiple wives? So I can look
Pakistan. Go with Pakistan. Or
also, just to help you out, Africa, it's super common in Africa for a man to have multiple wives, for a man to have the first wife, which he treats as the best wife. That's the first wife, but then you'll have the second wife and the third wife. It's super common as a culture over there.
Gotcha. Just checking this real quick. Many of the countries that permit polygamy have Muslim majorities, and the practice is rare in many of them. Fewer than 1% of Muslim men live with more than one spouse in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iran, and Egypt. All countries where the practice is legal, at least for Muslims.
Yeah, I personally think it's more common with like celebrities and shit like that. Like pretty much every ultra rich person has some kind of
the resources. It's not like most people have trouble providing for one family. They can't support multiple families. But the
I don't
point
think
is
men with the resources are going to want more. Why would you want multiple families though, as a guy?
because women are a resource, and families are a resource, especially in these kind of underdeveloped countries that rely on agriculture, because that's like more farm hands. That's more people helping out on the family farm. It's free labor.
So if I were to go back to older times in the United States where people had like family farms and stuff, you think I'm going to find it's pretty common that there's like one man with like multiple wives in the household? That's like a common thing?
No, again, in Christianity, you had Roman culture superimposed on Christianity. So monogamy that was the norm in the West, outside of Mormons who did have multiple wives. But if you go outside of Roman Christianity, where you had polygamy, it's very common. Like even like you were saying in Africa, because they had a different Christian tradition in Africa, they have polygamy because it's in the Bible. It was basically the Roman superimposition over Christianity, which brought monogamy. Which it's fine. My point is that it's not against female nature to share a man. You see this, like there's shows called Sister Wives where these women share men.
There might be shows, but I think the vast majority of women, at least in places where they can choose otherwise, would never choose these things. It might be the case that like in fucking sub-Saharan African countries, they choose it because people are dying of mass disease and that's the only way to survive. But given the like ability to choose freely and willingly, I don't think women gravitate towards one man. I think they'd rather have somebody to themselves.
No, I disagree with that, Destiny. I think if the value proposition is high enough, like you get to like the point of a celebrity or a billionaire, a lot of women will be willing to share the guy because they just, they like the lifestyle.
If the billionaire is trying to date crackheads, sure.
No, but like you think Leonardo DiCaprio was hooking up with like crackheads? Like, come on.
Well, hooking up or dating. Wait, hooking up or dating. Those are two different things. Leonardo DiCaprio probably fucks a lot of people, but I don't think he's dating multiple women at the same time.
Okay, like let's take like Hugh Hefner. Would you say the Playboy?
Yeah, I was going to say Hugh Hefner.
Like, why are we going with a guy that's literally a Playboy? Those women weren't exclusive to him. Those women were fucking around with everybody.
I mean, they were living in his house. He had like the main access. Yeah. Like he could kick them out anytime.
Okay, hold on. I just want to hear this. You think that all of the bunnies or whatever the fuck, the people living with Hugh Hefner, you think they were all faithful to just
No, I definitely don't. Of course.
Okay, so then that's not what we're talking about. I'll agree with you there. Yeah, celebrities and shit, there's probably a lot of people fucking everywhere for sure. But in terms of like multiple women being in a committed relationship with one man, I don't think any woman would gravitate to that unless you're shooting way above where you should be and the guy is dipping way down into somebody that's like super desperate for something. But if people are generally dating on level,
illegal.
Like what?
I don't know. That's one thing I would fundamentally disagree with you on. I think if the value proposition is high enough, I don't think it's for every woman. I think there's some women that would never go for it.
But when you say value proposition is high, it's got to be low on one and high on the other. You're looking for an imbalance to cause that, right?
Right.
If you got a smoking hot.
Yeah, you're talking about someone who has a crazy lifestyle, like Dan Bilzerian, Hugh Hefner, right? The lifestyle is like insanely attractive to the girl, right? And so the girl might be like, yeah, I don't like the idea of sharing the guy, but I like the idea of like fucking hanging out in his private jet and his mansion so much that I'm willing to put up with it. Yeah,
if there's a girl, but if she has the capability to net another guy like that, that's going to be faithful, even if he's a little bit lower, I think she would gravitate towards that guy instead. But this is like sub 0.001% of people. Like this is incredibly rare. Like a girl's not going to be like, I could date this guy making 100K, or there's that other guy that makes 400K, but he's got 3 other girls. I'm going to date that guy. I don't think women would choose that.
Well, there's a hierarchy.
You're assuming the mating preferences are logical. It's all emotional. It's not logical. Women aren't thinking logically. I have these 2 options. It's usually emotional. It's like, ooh, I don't know, like something about
the emotional is going to be like, ooh, that guy's dick smells like another woman's pussy. Get me the fuck out of here. That's going to be the emotional. The emotional is going to be like, my guy's with another girl right now. Fuck that. Like, I'm going to stab this motherfucker. That's the emotional.
That's
like,
not the emotion. The emotion is I'm going to take that guy away from all those girls because I'm the best.
I would agree with Lead on that.
Okay, that's just delusional.
That's what women are. I'm just teasing. It's a joke, but I just see this so much. Women think that they are the best. Women think that they can take a guy and change him and become number one in his eyes. And the fact that that man is with other women just underscores the fact that that's a man of value and that's a man that they should try to go get.
Yeah, I agree with that. That a man can signal value by having a lot of women around him. But the woman's goal when she gets that man is to pull him away from all the other women. She's not going to be happy. Yeah, she's not going to be happy being with the guy with all the other women. I agree with you that like a guy with a lot of other women around him is going to be more attracted to a woman, but her goal is to lock him down solo, like one-on-one.
I
Yeah,
agree
but
with
just
that.
like look at it like both of our relationships. We both fuck other girls, right? And both of your wife, my girlfriend, they're both cool with it, right? So it's like we're not even like that fucking high up on the status hierarchy. Certainly, I'm not. And like you and I can do it, so why can't
Okay,
like
first of all,
No. You
wait,
guys
wait.
are different. That is
Yeah.
not the common thing. That's not.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. One, our lives are exceptional. Two, my relationship is open on both ends, not just one end.
okay,
So,
cool.
so these are two. Our situations are totally different, and then
Okay.
also we live like exceptional lives. Also, we make a lot of money. We're like, yeah.
Yeah, you guys.
I
are
don't
not
make that
normal.
much money. I don't know. I think you're. I think
No,
you
that's Destiny's right. A normal
I don't
woman
make
is
Destiny
not going
money.
to.
But I don't think like any guy making less than like $1 million a year is like a guy making 400,000 a year is not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go net me 2 wives
I think it's rarely 2 wives. I think
or
it's
2
more like
girlfriends.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think like
Destiny,
2
that's
girlfriends.
wrong. Guys that make 400,000, they absolutely want 2 girlfriends and 3 girlfriends. I mean,
Hold on,
that's
I'm sorry.
so
Let
wrong.
me qualify it. They're not gonna have 2 girlfriends that know about each other.
Quite often, sometimes they do. Yeah, sometimes they
Yeah,
share them. Sometimes they have
They're
threesomes. Yeah,
not, it's not that big of a deal. Like
it's not
It
much
is a
fun.
huge deal. Most women don't want to share their man.
okay, no, there's a hierarchy. So women can earn their own money and they can even raise children by themselves as single mothers. So that's one level. Now, obviously, a woman would prefer to do better than that, but if she can't find someone in that status, she'll take what she can get, and it goes up and up and up. If a woman is attractive enough that she can pull a very rich, successful man, and she has a lifestyle that she couldn't get with a lower status man, but she has to, the price is she has to share this guy with his other girlfriends or something. She'll be fine with that if that's her best deal, because it's just business. Like, men are the romantics, women are actually much more like mercenary, I guess, when it comes to relationships.
This just doesn't happen where there are all of these guys dating multiple women, like in committed relationships where they all know about each other and they're having families. This just, that maybe like the 0.0001%, but this just doesn't happen. Like you don't have like all these rich neighborhoods in San Francisco. It's no, even dating multiple women and having children with multiple people and them all living together, whatever. This doesn't happen.
Oh, like the Tate brothers would be another example.
In the West,
The what?
in the West, it doesn't happen because it's illegal. Like
Oh, no,
hypergamy
it's
or not
it's
hypergamy.
not. It's not
Even in
legal.
places, I even looked in places in the Middle East where polygamy happens. It's less than 1% of the population. It seems like the only place where it happens is where a whole bunch of people are dying of fucking disease and famine and shit. Then it could be the case there. But again, those women aren't making selections because of like, this is what they would prefer. They're doing it probably out of survival.
Yeah, I agree with you. The 2 wives thing in the West is like super uncommon, but the like having 2 girlfriends or 3 girlfriends is like not that uncommon at all. Like just look at the Tate brothers. Like how many fucking girls are they dating?
Did you say look at who?
How many are they? How many are they like
Anthony
actually
Tate.
super dating though? Like where they're dating those women and they're exclusive.
But okay, so
And are you comparing the Tate brothers to the regular guys in America?
Who, me or Destiny?
You said look at the Tate brothers. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not saying this is something that's like super duper common. I understand that it's something that's fairly exclusive. I'm just saying that it's not as uncommon as I think Destiny thinks it is. And I think
then you use the Tate brothers as an example, and they're like super uncommon.
Yeah. Yes.
You would need to, if you want to disprove Destiny's point, you need to use a more common man.
The thing is that Destiny won't know the people. I know a dude in Australia who's just like a pretty charismatic dude. He's not that rich, right? But he's not going to know who he is. He's living with, I don't know, like 3 or 4 girls. He's dating all of them. They all live together. But like,
and all of those women are faithful to that one guy.
I mean, dude, I'm not like fucking hanging out with them. But as far as he's told me, yes.
No, Destiny's right on that. No, well, I think Destiny's right in the sense that these relationships where all these women are dating, a few dudes, that can happen in the beginning, but it's not going to last long term. Typically, you're not going to see. You're not going to see a 7-year relationship with one guy and 4 girlfriends. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think typically what happens is the girl gets tired of it after a few years, and then like another girl comes in. Yeah, I'll concede that.
Yeah, that's what Destiny's trying to say.
Okay, I thought he was trying to say.
I think it's also weird that like
rare and like never happens, almost never.
People talk about like biology, like reproductive strategies, and like people always want to like get into like the biology and everything. Like my guess is going to be is that like biologically, like women are probably going to be drawn towards more faithful men than less faithful men. Like if you've got a guy that's willing to lock himself down with one woman, because women have to make high investments in children, right? K series versus R series reproductive strategies. Chances are the woman's going to want a guy that's not going to leave her for somebody else. That'd be my guess.
No,
There's
I
competing.
would disagree on that because women do want to have a man provide resources for the child, but they also want a genetically gifted child. If that's why you have all these women that are clamoring after these 6'8", athletes, right? They know they're not going to be faithful, but what are their kids are going to be fucking monsters, right?
Wait, when you say 6'8" athletes, is it because they want children that are monsters, or is it because they're after like those fat NBA alimonies? That sounds like
I thought you were going to say Cox.
No. That
Well,
sounds like a hyper specific, like women chasing NBA players. Sounds like you're shopping for alimony there, right?
Can I insert something?
You're shopping for a lot of women. It's like women don't have just one strategy. They have multiple strategies that occur at the same time. So women are looking, when you say alimony, what you're talking about is resources, right? But when you say resources and we talk about genetics, that wasn't your original point. Your original point was more towards the loyalty. And women don't need go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say the reason why loyalty is probably important is because the likeliness of a man being able to provide enough resources for multiple women is probably going to be really low. And if a man is shopping around for multiple women, the chances that he leaves you at some point is probably pretty high, right? Like if a man has one woman or two women and he knocks them up and then 10 years later, he's got the ability to go and fuck, 22-year-olds, right? It feels like the security you'd have in that relationship would be a lot less.
I agree with that. I didn't know. I thought you had won the argument about women not wanting to share guys long term. I totally agree with that, and I think Alex came around to your point.
No, well, okay, here's another example. The Tiger King guy, like he's not particularly rich, but I think he had like multiple fucking chicks that he, if not multiple girlfriends or multiple.
Isn't he gay?
What?
He was gay.
The what?
I thought he was gay, right?
Tiger King? Yeah, he was gay.
I thought
he was.
God, Alex, the examples you use, Alex, are crazy.
I thought he had multiple girlfriends. I thought that was like the whole thing. That was like
maybe he might have been bi. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's at least bi.
I'm looking this up. Okay, hang on. Let me see. Tiger King.
Right. Well, can I interject? Can I interject something real quick? So if you look at primate mating behaviors, because humans are basically in between chimpanzees and bonobos in terms of sexual dimorphism. So humans are not tournament mating. They're not like gorillas and stuff like that, where you have like these, because gorillas have harems. They have multiple mates. There's no government. There's no marriage certificates. It's just animals having families. Now, if you look at chimpanzees, they don't mate for life. They don't really have harems. They basically form troops. And the alpha, he gets first crack at the females, but the betas can get crack. They can hit that pussy too. And the children are basically raised communally within the troop. Now, the interesting thing is, to lead attorney's point, what will usually happen is the female will mate with the strongest, fittest male when she's ovulating, and then she will use sex to acquire resources from the betas, basically cucking them and getting them to like take care of her and the offspring, even though they're not the beta's genetic offspring. And it's like that's just evolutionary behavior, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like genetically and evolutionarily, it makes sense because you're maximizing genetic fitness by reproducing with the strong fit males, even if they're not loyal, and then you're using the loyal betas to take care of you and to help raise your offspring. It's the best of both worlds because you get all the resources from the betas, but you get the strong genes from the alphas.
Can I just curious? Can I bring a friend into this if I want to throw somebody else in here?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I just want to make a correction. So it wasn't actually Joe Exotic. It was his mentor, Bhagwan Doc Antley, Joe's mentor, he's the one that had the 3 wives.
I think if your name is Bhagwan Don Antley, you're absolutely going to have 3 wives.
I'm just saying, dude, this guy's not like super rich or something like that. He's just some tiger dude who hangs out with animals.
Okay, I throw the StreamYard to a friend. Her name is Anna. I'll be right back. 1 second. I'm going to get a drink real quick. Hold on.
Go for it.
Shit. Well, there we go.
Well, yeah,
this is why I don't like debates. I don't like have all my sources. I used to do that. I generally used to have all my sources listed, and what I found was I would present my sources, and they would just pick them apart and try to find a reason to dismiss them, and they would demand more sources, and they would just do that indefinitely until I told them to go fuck themselves, and then they would declare victory. And I just learned that's a giant waste of time. So
yeah, the sources thing, and that's what I came in to tell. Now, to be honest, TFM, like Destiny was fucking you up on the whole political thing, to be honest. But him insisting on sources for this type of stuff, it doesn't make any sense at all. And that's what I had to tell Destiny. And I don't know if he accepted it or not, but it's absolutely true.
What aspect of the political thing?
Oh my God, like you were fucking it all up. Like he was asking you specific examples of things, and you couldn't come up with one. Like, he was asking you to, like, one example of kicking the can down the road. Like, what does that mean? Now, to be honest, Destiny knows exactly what that means. He knows exactly what kicking the can down the road means, right? But he was trying to pin you down to see if you knew, and you couldn't explain it. Like, there was a lot of, go ahead.
I was trying to come up with a specific example. Like, hold on, like, because I just assume. See, I'm not used to like debating these professionals. I assume like we all kind of understand everyday things. So when you're like, whoa, like, give me a specific example of Congress delegating their authority to an unaccountable bureaucrat, and I'm like, well, shit, let me think. And yeah, so this is my problem with debates. Is I prefer discussions where we just we try to understand each other, whereas as opposed to trying to win. Because when you try to win,
Donovan Sharp said that same shit about Destiny. Donovan Sharp was like, "Oh, I'll never debate Destiny. I'll never debate Destiny because Destiny is a professional argumenter and he's trying to win." Now that's bullshit. Listen, because Donovan was like, "Well, Destiny's just trying to win, and I'm trying to get to the truth." No, if you're trying to get to the truth, let's have a real discussion. But if you're going to say something, you need to back it up. If you're going to say that a politician is going to kick the can down the road, you need to explain what you mean. It's not like everybody's going to assume what you mean, because actually assumptions are a huge cause of people not coming to agreement because people don't understand other people's underlying assumptions.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I was caught off guard because I just did assume I had to define my terms to that granularity.
I mean, so kicking the can down the road is not super granular, to be honest.
No, well, I was right. Well, I'm being way too informal. And that's
by the way, this is the guy who had 3 wives. So we got this fine-looking gentleman. I guess there's something high value about a man who found those tigers.
Well, it's about the lifestyle you can provide. Obviously he has access to these exotic animals. Maybe these women were super into that lifestyle, and the price they had to pay to have access to that lifestyle necessitated them tripling up on a guy. And if the juice is worth the squeeze, they're going to reach for that orange. And that's
those tigers are pretty fucking badass. I'm not going to lie. Like,
apparently this guy was forced to deny claims that he had multiple wives after the Netflix documentary suggested he had 9 wives.
I think the correct number is 3.
Well, there he goes.
Well, speaking to People magazine, Josh denied the accusations, insisting he had not married since his wife died 25 years ago. The 60-year-old animal trainer said, "I'm not married. My wife died 25 years ago in a car crash here in Myrtle Beach. I've never been married since."
But it wouldn't be surprising that after like the massive public backlash, he just did a 180 and he denied it.
Well, you also have meretricious relationships where you maybe have some live-in girlfriends, and and then the courts can still declare you married even if you don't have the paperwork. It's whatever. It's not even a major point that was really important.
Well, let's see what Annalisa has to say since she's the new.
Hi guys.
Wait.
What are you doing?
Hold on, I'm sorry. Lead attorney is here. Before we hop, I always like rag on people that make these other points about like the harems and shit. But since lead attorney's here, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, and then Anna, you can do your thing, okay? The reason why I usually push back when people bring up this like harem stuff is because I feel like it paints this incredibly dire and bleak situation of dating across the United States. The idea that if you're a normal guy and you're not making $500,000, you're fucked. You're never going to find a woman. Every woman you find is going to leave you for another man. Your whole life, your whole value is tied into dollars. But I feel like there are a lot of reasons why marriages fail. There's a lot of reasons why marriages work. I think there are a lot of ways that a man can improve himself to make him a better candidate to be married. It doesn't necessarily tie into his paycheck. That depending on the type of one you go after, that might be a threat at some point, but that you can find people, both of you can earn some amount of money. You could earn less, you could earn a little bit more, but you can build like happy, healthy, strong relationships that will work and stand the test of time. You don't have to be earning $500,000 a year to keep your relationship safe. That's usually why I push back against that. You can tell me if you agree or disagree on that for Alex and the lead attorney. Yeah, that's the only reason why I push back against that like generalization of how the relationships work.
Yeah, let me just quickly respond to that. I think you know me well enough to know that's like completely not position. I don't believe in any of this doomer shit. I think the average guy can actually do pretty well. This is why I teach game and pickup and all that. And I actually don't think it primarily, I think money is a factor, but I think it also has to do with status. It all has to do with game, your charisma, and all that factors. Like, for example, this Tiger guy, he's not particularly rich, but I'm sure he's probably pretty fucking charismatic and, ballsy because he's able to play with tigers and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't think A equals necessarily equals B. I think just because there's a small percentage of guys who have this kind of harem type of thing because they have, for whatever reason, they're in a unique position, I don't think that means the average guy is fucked, right? Those two things don't have to equal each other.
Well, I guess that would be confusing for me, because if on the one hand you're saying that there's any truth to it, like, I guess to what degree do you believe that that's what and I also think it's interesting that you guys are speaking on behalf of women and what women want. That's really weird to me. But I mean, I'm here for it. But Alex, sorry, to what degree do you think that that women are just really looking for these wealthy men and, are open or even happy to be a part of these harems?
I mean, I couldn't give you an exact percentage. I don't think it's every woman by any stretch. I think women and men are diverse, and some women want this, some women want that. Same goes with men. I don't know. I think there's a decent amount of women. It could be anywhere from as little as 1% to as much as 25%. I would probably say it's less than 50%. That are, that kind of want, a guy who's significantly more successful than them.
But does significantly more successful, does that sort of by de facto, does that mean he's going to be unfaithful? Does that mean he's going to have a harem? Is it mutually exclusive? Is that what we're talking about?
No, they're not mutually exclusive, but I think there's a significant portion of women out there who will be part of a harem if they like the guy. Now, for whatever reason, maybe because he has really, really good game, he's really charming, maybe because he's a really good musician, or maybe because he's really, a successful celebrity who offers them a really cool lifestyle. So I do think there's going to be a significant percentage of women that will do that. Doesn't mean the guy's unfaithful. Usually those guys are actually really upfront. They're like, yeah, this is what I want. I'm not going to be exclusive to you, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So this is where Destiny and I agree, of course, but I think it's a little bit First of all, I don't think that, and actually I know that women don't want that by and large. I'm sure you have a very tiny, marginal segment of the population who would go for that. But to the extent that they're going for that, it's fleeting. It's fleeting. So if we're talking about meaningful relationships, if we're talking about at some point incorporating children, these relationships, what you're describing, simply would not work. The thing about evolution,
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
With the thing about evolution, because I heard someone, it's incel evolutionary logic, and it's interesting to me. The thing about evolution is monogamy is it became an evolutionary imperative. That's kind of the way that it worked.
Did you have something else to add, or
what is incel evolutionary biology?
Can you guys hear me?
You broke up there for a while.
Okay, so what I just want to talk about.
You're breaking up again. Well, I'm kind of curious too what incel evolutionary biology.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
It's like a new field that I haven't heard of. They didn't have this when I was in high school.
Maybe that's the Lord trying to save us. Like, come on, guys, we're not going to listen to this.
Like college, like incel evolutionary biology 101. Like, oh, fuck, yeah, I got my incel evolutionary biology test today. I haven't studied for it. I need to go research some incels.
It's so ridiculous.
Steven, can you guys hear me?
You broke up.
We can hear you now. You're breaking up, Anna.
Okay, so let me just say this, and then you guys can giggle and laugh and attack the point. The thing about evolution is obviously it changes, right? As the environment changes, we change, we interact with the environment in a symbiotic way. And monogamy, it's been an evolutionary imperative. That's what my position is. And at some point in history, we've realized that you need two people, to ensure the survival of our offspring. Two people are needed, and you're needed long term. And so because of that, monogamy has been it's been adopted in the Western world, and most of the world, I would say. Stephen pointed to 1% or less than 1% of the population, even in third world countries, that actually actively practice polygamy. So yeah, obviously monogamy works and it is an evolutionary imperative. So the idea that you guys are talking about female nature and evolution, it's counterintuitive to what is actually imperative for what all women want their children and their offspring to survive and to do well. So like when you're talking about female nature and evolution, like you kind of missed the mark. And I think I'm talking to TFM actually.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. I didn't write anything down. I don't have like a notepad or anything. Okay. So yes, evolution is always it's a dynamic relationship between the organism and the environment. Back in the olden times where you had men died in war a lot more, there's usually at least one war per generation. You had a lot of dead guys and you had basically the women were left behind. And so the women needed someone to take care of them. So they were a lot more open to, doubling up on a guy because that was their survival. Now you have government programs which allow women to be single mothers, which would have been unheard of centuries ago. But now women, due to various programs, they can raise their children by themselves and they don't even need a man anymore.
Are you saying that women are single mothers because programs exist? Are you saying that like? Are you like, is this the chicken?
That is what he is saying that.
Yeah, well, without the programs, these women would be.
Is he serious, Steven?
No, he is serious. He believes that the reason why women are kicking fathers out of the household is because of those welfare programs. That's exactly what he's saying.
Do you have any can you bolster your argument with any data whatsoever?
So I have a chart, but it doesn't count.
I can pull up data right now about monogamy. Slightly different discussion, but in 2011, Emma Nelson at the University of Liverpool and her colleague looked at finger bones of ancient hominid fossils. From what they found, they conclude that hominids 4.4 million years ago mated with many females by about 3.5 million years ago. However, the finger length ratio indicating hominids have shifted more to monogamy. Our lineage never evolved to be strictly monogamous. So this is from New York Times.
But that doesn't count.
Wait, hold on, wait. Can you read that again? It seems like that was the exact opposite. It sounds like 4 or 5 million years ago it wasn't, and then 3 million years ago it was.
It's saying that our lineage, like where we are now, is like somewhere between where we're not strictly.
Well, but it sounds like it was literally tending in that direction. Wait, can you bring that up again and read that?
Yeah, 1 second. Monogamy ancient times. Here, you can speak at TFM while I look it up.
Okay, so single mothers wasn't a viable strategy centuries ago before government programs allowed women to basically provide for themselves via assistance. So that's why you had shotgun marriages. That's why you had families,
Sorry, Tiff, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear what you said. You said, okay, so
before welfare, families basically had extended families take care of each other.
Before welfare, were families intact? Is that your position?
Oh, yeah, marriage. Well, you had shotgun marriages. You had people getting married younger because they didn't have the government.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you whether or not families were intact because you've heard of desertion, right? Like you can be a married single mother. You could be married, and men can desert families and start new families. That was actually a very common theme specifically in the Black community in the 50s and 60s. So what are you talking like, were there intact families before the advent of welfare? Do you know what welfare was actually implemented for and to whom it was originally? Do you know who it was for?
Widows and orphans.
Right. So do you see how maybe your argument doesn't really, maybe you're holding it together with like bubblegum and strings?
Well, no, except for the Great Society in the 60s that expanded welfare to single mothers, and then you saw the single motherhood rate take off.
So hold on. So, okay, wait a minute.
It still existed prior to that.
Well, that's my point. So if absenteeism existed before the advent of welfare, that's your entire argument. That's what I'm saying. It's not that welfare made it permissible for mothers to have children and for fathers to leave or to have children out of wedlock. If it was already happening, that's my point. Is you don't have an argument. I disagree with you. I think that it's a cause and effect relationship. I know for a fact that Black men specifically were getting welfare before any group, actually, because they were just because of the rates of unemployment, because they were so far down the socioeconomic strata or ladder, that because they needed more help, they were getting more financial help and subsidies from the government even before Black women. So the thing about that, I mean, with your argument, is it doesn't really make sense. If you're going to say that welfare made it okay to be a single mother, I would argue that single mothers had no choice but to rely on welfare because the men were deserting them and or not providing for their children. If you think in your mind that having a man provide for your family and be there in the home, which we know statistically it creates the best socioeconomic and psychological and emotional outcomes, if you think that people are actively choosing to shirk that, or to like, if you think that women are choosing even welfare, was you're still living and operating at the level of poverty. So you're saying that women are consciously choosing that over men who are able to provide. You don't think it's more possible that men simply weren't there or providing, and so they had no choice? I was just so that they could survive. Is that your argument?
My argument is, before the welfare state started rewarding women for being single mothers, there were mechanisms like shotgun marriages, family pressure, communal pressure.
Right, but we know, but sir, we
together.
already know, but we already
No,
went through this. We already said that there were single mothers
So,
before the advent of welfare. We already did that, and there actually were. So
yeah, but
marriage wasn't.
Yeah, there were. It was much lower. And in fact, like, okay, hold on. I know this chart doesn't mean anything. I pulled it out of my ass. It's completely meaningless. Don't pay attention. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But so let me just. I have the thing. So you have the Black single motherhood rate.
Hold on. Sorry, is it TFM? You think that welfare is a reward? Do you know how much? Do you know what the rate that that they were getting?
Oh, so if you look at
let him answer, Annalisa.
Right. So you look at the Black single motherhood rate in the 50s before the Great Society, it was less than 20%. And then among white families, it was almost nothing. And then you go forward to 2010, you actually have more white single mothers than in the 1950s among the Black community. And the Black community has gone up. At 2010, it was 72.5% of single mothers. That's you could, I don't know, like if you have, and again, the chart proves nothing. I'm sure there's all these other examples and reasons for it, but it looks like that creating these welfare programs allowed women who might have otherwise chosen differently to simply become single mothers. And then you see the rate of single motherhood rising among all races, obviously, particularly among the Black community, but
okay, so he's serious.
Are we just talking about Black people because I'm here, or like, what's the deal?
No, that's just a statistic. Like, it's just the most stark example.
I don't know how you can, like, when you're having these conversations, I'm sorry, unfortunately, they do have to be nuanced, because these issues and everything that we're discussing, it affects different communities at different degrees.
And Alicia, I was just teasing, baby. I was just teasing. It was just a joke.
Okay. So TFM, what do you think that chart proved?
It proves that the expansion of welfare programs made certain lifestyles more viable than previous to those programs.
What lifestyles? So you're talking about poverty. So poverty became more accessible, is what you're saying.
Poverty became safer and more comfortable, and so more people.
Why do you okay, so poverty is safe. You think that poverty is safe?
I said it was safer and more comfortable.
Safer than what? Poverty is safer than what?
Before the welfare state, when you had to rely on family, extended family, church, charity.
So you think that welfare is more is
Wait, Annalisa, you gotta let him finish his points, though. Just let him finish his points.
Oh, that was my point. That was it. I'm done.
So welfare is a safer social or a safer safety net than father, an intact home, a nuclear home.
That's not what I said. No. Well, it's not obviously women would prefer to have the best possible option, but if they can choose, like when people have a safety net, they take more risks, and they can do things which ruin their future because they're not going to suffer immediate negative consequences like they were because there's a safety net there. That's you argue that's a good thing. You're catching the people as they fall, and you're giving them a safe
My argument is that it's not a safety net. It's not. They're living at the poverty. They're the most impoverished groups of people on the face of the planet. I'm telling you that there's no safety in that.
Well, the problem is we define poverty through relative terms as opposed to absolute terms. So, the bottom X percent, I don't know what the number is.
We're having this conversation relative to the Western world, right? So yeah, in the Western world, they're living at the poverty. And we know the things that are associated with poverty objectively is criminality, low socioeconomics, low academic attainment, poor mental health, exponentially high rates of suicide, depression, drug addiction, substance abuse, like the list goes on and on. So there's no safety in that.
Okay, but before the welfare, the crime went up with the welfare dependents. In fact, well, I don't even want to bring I don't want to bring this up. It's just going to be another. Well, I don't have the sources in front of me, but if you look at the group that does absolutely worse, far worse than African Americans, is Native Americans. They have more alcoholism, sexual trafficking, crime. They get shot by the police more per capita, and it's not the problem is they're the most helped by the government. They have all these Native American programs that give them all this stuff, because a lot of racists like to make it about IQ, but Native American IQ is between white and Hispanic average IQs.
Wait, can I just hear that? Can I just hear that one more time? So you think the majority of issues facing Native Americans today is caused by welfare?
It's it's welfare dependence breeds a certain kind of mentality. Now there's other things. It's more nuanced. Everything's more nuanced. We're talking about living people.
Well, yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, broadly speaking, like the biggest problems facing Native Americans, the reason why they're like everything is so fucked is because of welfare.
Destiny, they're welfare dependent. Okay, they have a welfare dependent mentality.
Well, I just want to hear that. That's very interesting to me.
Right.
Wow.
Well, so I get in debates with racists who want to say everything is about average IQ, and they bring up how like black people commit more crime and they have lower average IQs. And my response to them is to point out Native Americans who their average IQ is between whites and Hispanics. It's kind of in the middle, and yet they're what their lifestyle shows in their crime and poverty and drug addiction and being shot by the police and human trafficked is the worst of any group. And if you look at things from a lens of IQ, that doesn't make sense. But if you look at it from a lens of which groups receive the most welfare, it all matches up, because Native Americans have all these treaties, they get all this free stuff, and they live in.
Can I just ask? Yeah, can I ask one question here? Do you ever worry that, like, so here's data that I know exists in the United States right now, right? Chances are, if you take insulin, you're way higher risk of dying of like diabetic related complications than somebody who doesn't take insulin. Do you see a problem with that statement?
So yeah, because they're dependent on insulin, therefore the dependence on insulin is causing the diabetic problems.
No. Because they have diabetes, right?
I understand that.
My guess is going to be that, like, of course, like welfare dependent communities are going to have more problems than non-welfare dependent communities. But might it be we're putting the cart before the horse? Could it be because those communities are like really fucked up? Now, Native Americans have, it's been a long time since I watched Pocahontas, but I know they had a lot of problems in the United States historically that maybe played into things, and it's not just welfare ruining those communities. Just a guess, though. I'm just throwing out there, but sorry, go ahead. You guys continue.
Well, there actually are different tribes, and some tribes, because they've intermarried with white people too much, they're not recognized by the state as an independent tribe. I think the Lumbees are the one that comes to mind, and they don't get welfare from the state, and their standards of living are much higher than their cousins over here who do have reservations and welfare and all these government programs. They live in squalor, whereas the tribes, which are basically just you're too white, you don't get anything, they're just normal people, and they don't live in the squalor of, and they're all Native Americans. They have the same culture.
I think it might be, it's a little slippery for you to make the assertion or to use welfare as the single variable that's responsible for those outcomes. Like, because you don't know that sort of like, unless you know the social sort of ecosystem that they're operating in, and you know that you understand their culture, their traditions, their norms, and everything like that, it's kind of difficult for you to predicate your argument on welfare being the exclusive contributing variable.
I don't think he's saying that.
Well,
though.
I grew up in
he said
Section 8
it's
housing. I was raised
multifaceted.
Well, no,
Well,
no,
I
hold on.
was-
To
I
be
was
clear, he's
raised
saying
in-
that is the single largest contributing variable. He is saying that.
I am saying that it is. If it's the single largest contributing, if you isolate the variables, the problem is you, and I've seen it. I've lived it. I grew up in Section 8 housing, raised by a single mother, and the people who they get in Section 8 housing, they don't want to leave because they're afraid of they're going to lose their place on the list. They don't want to get out of it because they're comfortable enough. And so they just stay there, and their kids and you have intergenerational poverty because they understand that system, and they're basically punished for trying to get out of the system. Now, I brought up that chart about the welfare cliff, and then that started a whole thing. I'm not even going to bother doing that again. But this is something I've lived, just like kind of like lead attorney. He's been a divorce attorney for 20 years.
Wait, so so I can understand this point that you're making.
I grew up in poverty.
Yeah, so there are people that were around you, and they had the opportunity to be like engineers and doctors and lawyers, but they were like, oof, I don't know if I'm going to lose my Section 8 voucher, so they decided not to go to law school. Is that like the decision that's being made?
They made choices to basically keep their income levels down to not lose their welfare benefits. And they didn't want to leave Section 8 housing because they weren't sure they could get back in. So it was the safer, rational choice to just stay there. And yes, if they went out there and crushed it, maybe they could have lifted themselves out of poverty. But the risk was they could lose their benefits, and then they could find themselves at the bottom of a wait list and never get back into Section 8 housing. So people just settled. And they just kind of gave up on life, and they didn't want to get out of there. And I saw it growing up everywhere. Now you could be like, I don't have a study. I just have my own lived experience. But I see what welfare dependence does to people. It breaks their spirit, and they just give up on themselves.
But is it the welfare itself, or is it sort of the I think it's a little bit I mean, so I understand some of the the trepidation with having people dependent on any social or economic apparatus. I understand that, and to some degree there's validity to what you're saying. But then on the other end, there is safety in that. If you have someone, because potential sometimes I think what Destiny is saying is access matters, and access is important. Having access to, depending on the school that you go to, that changes how much access you're going to have to becoming, economically mobile and independent. Like, access, I think, is probably one of the biggest predictors. So if you're talking about a demographic of people who are in marginalized and criminalized communities where access is not readily available, in some cases it is the smart thing to have what it's not safety to me, it's poverty to me, but for them obviously that's the life that they know. But there is safety in it, especially if you don't know where you might land. If a job doesn't work out, if something that you're trying to do, if it doesn't work out, then what's the alternative for people in those situations?
Well, so there's ways. There's two things I just want to bring up. This is kind of like a side rant. Destiny brought up a while ago about like having the systems taper off more gradually rather than just falling off. The problem with that is to have a gradual taper, you have to basically start at a lower level so that it can take, like, you don't want people earning six figures on welfare because that's greater than the median income. So let's say you want welfare programs to taper off to about 50K
Wait, do
a year.
people make that? Do people make 6 figures on welfare?
Wait, just
no, but that's if you wanted a gradually tapering system, you'd have to basically start it out much lower, and that would actually hurt the poorest people. So you want to lift the poorest people up to a certain standard of living, but then if you taper it off, it's going to taper off all the way to like 6 figures. And then you're going to have people who are incentivized to go on welfare, similar to during COVID. You were getting more, some people, not everyone obviously, but they were basically getting a bonus to unemployment. In some cases was greater than the money they were actually earning at the job before they were laid off due to COVID. And they were getting more money employed than anything. And then when the COVID restrictions were lifted, they didn't want to go back to work because they were getting paid more to not work. It was only when that program was over and they had to go get a job that they finally went starting to look for a job. There were periods, people were calling into my show, and they were getting all these offers for free training and all this stuff. They were like changing careers because there was such a huge labor crunch. And then once the program ended, all of a sudden everyone was like desperately trying to look for a job, but they were milking this as long as they could because it's rational for them to do so. They were better off sitting on welfare than getting a job. So we have 2 years of data due to COVID about when you create a program which pays people to not work, they choose the path of least resistance.
So in some ways this can be right. But the unemployment thing you bring up is not true. There were a lot of Republican governors that opted to end that unemployment insurance early to see if it would boost their labor force participation rate. And I don't think it did in a single Republican state. So I don't think there was data showing that expanded UI was preventing laborers from returning to the workforce. I think that we just had a lot of people actually drop out of the economy when the COVID stuff happened. Probably old boomers and stuff that were like, okay, I'm done working. I'm not going back. To the first point, to the second thing, I don't think that people are choosing to remain in welfare if they had other opportunities available to them.
Destiny, there's a phenomenon called learned helplessness. I think that's what TFM is referring to.
Yeah, there is a phenomenon called learned helplessness. But I given the opportunity to like go to school and everything and to like build a better life for your child, I don't think that I think that we have this idea that poor people navigate these welfare systems in incredibly sophisticated ways. And I don't know if they're like plotting and scheming that.
No, I agree with you on that.
Right?
I don't think
I think you generally, even as a poor person, you want your kid to go to school and to do well and to get a job. Like you're not telling them like, listen, like the cliff starts at around 32,000 a year. You don't want to earn more than 44,000 because you're like, I don't think anybody's like trying to game their income like that. Because if it was, I think you'd expect to see, like that one paper pointed out, there'd be a lot more people near that cliff. Also, I don't think that having it slope off slower. First of all, almost all aid or a lot of it does slope off. Very rarely does it just completely drop off. Most of it slopes off, like the earned income tax credit slopes off. Having it slope off like more gradually up to like even 100K, I don't think that that's necessarily a big deal. Like we give tax cuts and tax breaks and stuff to people who are earning that much money all the time. Like one of the dumbest like tax exemptions we have in the United States is the if you do an itemized deduction, like doing like the mortgage interest you pay is like deductible off of your AGI or whatever. Like, I don't know why we do that, but like there's all sorts of tax breaks we give to people that make like even more than $100,000. So I don't know if that'd be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, Destiny, I don't think it's like a malicious thing, or at least I don't know if that's what TFM is saying, but that's not my position. I don't think it's like a malicious thing where poor people are like, yeah, okay, let me take advantage of the system as much as I can. I think it becomes more of like with some of them, it becomes like a learn.
You might not think that. That's great if you don't think of it. He said mothers were choosing to kick fathers out of the house.
I'm just saying, like I'm personally taking a middle position, but I'm just saying like you could take a middle position on this and think that like, like, okay, maybe there's something about, giving someone something for an extended period of time that changes their psychology. And we know this, with the concept of learned helplessness, that yes, that can do it. Like through a period of like, we're just giving shit, like maybe that just completely cuts your natural desire to work for things, right? Like that's not,
over time, I don't necessarily doubt that, right? That's probably the case, but I don't know if that would necessarily translate intergenerational if you have like the opportunity for your kids. Because something that Anna was getting at, I only brought her in here because I knew she'd rile people up, but she got disconnected. Sorry. But it's something that Anna was getting at that's true is that like, I don't know if people know this, but life in poverty sucks. Like living with Section 8 vouchers and like living like that, those lifestyles suck. Nobody's living like these luxurious lifestyles, getting like food stamps and CHIP and like Medicaid and all this shit. So I think that given the opportunity to like excel or climb out of that, like if people had the educational economic opportunity to move out of that, I think they generally choose that.
Sure, but sometimes when you're in that position, you think that you're like, it's outside of your reach again, because you feel really helpless. You're like, I'll never be able to maintain like a 6-figure job. Like that's something that's outside my reach of possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, you could think that. But I'm just saying that, like, if a kid has the opportunity to go to like a really good, like a decent school, not it doesn't be like an A-list school or whatever, tier 1 school. Like, a kid has an opportunity to go to like a decent school. I don't think they're ever making future decisions based on optimizing their welfare. That'd be my
No,
guess.
I agree with you. I don't think kids are doing that. Although kids are heavily influenced by like their parents and what their parents believe.
Sure.
Like if your parents are like, "Hey, listen, work hard. You know, like you're gonna make it, but you're gonna have to work really hard," or your parents are like, "Don't even bother. Like you're kind of fucked anyway. Like there's no
Sure.
point." You know, you're gonna have a totally different attitude when you're like 18, 19.
Yeah, of course.
No.
Lead
So
attorney, I feel like you've got things to do with your time. Do you want to? Is there
Yeah,
anything you want to say? I feel bad that you're just kind of like sitting
No,
here.
I'm listening. I actually enjoy the conversation. I was trying to figure out what TFM was saying, the disagreement between TFM and yourself. I was kind of leaning more towards you, although what the issue that I had, I thought with TFM is he's saying that, women were kicking the men out of homes to optimize their state benefits. And that's not true, because women are human beings and women want their cake and they eat it too. It's like I'll talk. Well, I'll make my specific point and then I'll analogize it to alimony. What women were doing were kicking the men out of the house when the inspectors were coming to do their home visits to see if there was a man in the house, right? They would kick him out of the house, tell him to take his shoes, take his toothbrush, take his underwear, so that when the person came in to look to see if a man was in the house, there was no man in the house. And then when the inspector left, the man comes back. I see this all the time with alimony.
That's something, yeah, I believe that 100%. That people would dump their husbands for welfare, no, but that people would hide it to scam it, yeah, I could see that happening for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Women
I would agree with that.
Women do this
I've heard stories
all
like
the time with alimony. In most states, alimony ends when the wife gets remarried. So millions of women do it. They just don't remarry. They will have a boyfriend for 20 years. They will be 70 years old with a boyfriend, but they will not get married because they don't want those alimony checks to stop. And so then attorneys and judges started putting in this cohabitation principle. And so that alimony will stop when the wife gets remarried or when they cohabitate with a man. And now you have all these cases where women are trying to hide the fact that their boyfriends are living with them. 2 years ago, I went to the Georgia Supreme Court to argue a case because a woman was trying to hide her boyfriend. And we could prove that she had a boyfriend, and we ended up stopping that alimony. So they're just human beings. They want to optimize their results. They want to have their cake and eat it too.
I agree with that. I think people are usually like a lot less malicious and much more like emotional intuitive than people think. Like, like these women aren't like these like kind of like masterminds for like plotting along. They're just kind of going with their feels. And they're like, oh, ooh, I want to, okay, get out of the house, Bobby. The inspector is coming, right? But they're not going to like actually break up with their boyfriend for the sake of like keeping money going.
Yeah. Men and women, we're so different, but our goals are exactly the same in the sense that we're trying to optimize what we want. And you can say that men try to do it in a more logical way. Women try to do it in a more feeling, emotional, comprehensive way. But it's the same thing. We're all on this planet running cost-benefit analysis. That's all we're doing. And so a lot of times when men say that they don't understand women or vice versa, is that they're not giving them credit. They're not giving the other gender credit for being a cost-benefit analysis machine. Right now, you might not agree with what their calculations are in this machine, but everybody has their own goals and desires. And a lot of times those goals and desires, there can be multiple, number one, and sometimes they can conflict. So we were talking about, do women want to optimize their resources with the alimony, kind of what Destiny was saying. And I was saying, yes, Destiny, that's part of it. But we also have to remember that women want strong, genetically healthy children. And you have to factor that in there when women select these mates. You wonder why women are going out with these Pookies and Ray Rays and they're getting knocked up by these, gangsters. Well, if a guy has, 3 guns in the house and a kilo of dope, that guy's not a bitch. That guy is like on it. He's aggressive, and his children might come out the same. His children might come out. They're not going to take a lot of shit. They're not going to get, rolled over by society. And there's a part of women that love that. Women want strong kids, and you have to factor that in. And I see this play out all the time in divorce court when you talk to these women and you figure out what they really want. A woman will be dating you, or and she'll tell you what she wants. It's bullshit. You know who she tells what she really wants? The damn judge. She tells the divorce attorney what she really wants. And if you do this long enough, you start to see the big picture.
Yeah, to lead attorney's point, there's a reason why convicted felons have a much higher rate of having children than not much higher, but I think it's 25% than non-felons.
I would fight against that. My guess is going to be that one of the reasons why convicted felons probably have higher rates of children isn't because their chads are attractive. It's because people in lower socioeconomic status have less to do in life than to just fuck, right? Like if you go to like a well-off school and you're like in a well-off family, like you're going in at 6:30 a.m. to do like theater or band. You're staying at school until like 5 or 6 because you're playing football and soccer. And then when you go home, like mom is picking you up. Somebody knows where you're at all times. Like generally there's shit going on. But like when you're in poorer families, you don't have as many people with eyes on you. There's not as many extracurricular activities people are handing you over. Like when you're 15, 16, 13, whatever the fuck, like, well, as soon as you got nothing else to do, people start to fuck, and that's just what happens. I think that's probably why like felons and shit are more likely to have children.
Yeah, that's a possible explanation. I can't dismiss that. I'd have to do more research before I come to a conclusion on that. Yeah, that's possible.
That's why, like, I think, like, in countries, like, not to do the black thing, I'm sorry, but like for the sub-Saharan African countries, for like the really poor African countries, like the reason why these people have so many kids is for a lot of them, I don't think they're necessarily optimizing for their farms. It's just because oftentimes, like, depending on how poor your community is, you just have nothing else to do but fucking have kids. Like, that's just what people do. I mean, it's a pretty classic human activity.
And a lot of the women who are having children, I think we might be surprised at how young they are when they start having children in these countries. So, I mean, there's a different element to sort of the reasons as to why they're having children when we discuss how old they are when they start having children.
I have a question for you and Alicia, unless someone wants to respond to that.
Yeah, sure.
Going back to when you first came in, so do you think that harems like don't exist, or do you think they're just a lot less common than, for example, me and TFM are making them out to be?
I don't think that they are common. I don't think that it is prevalently. I don't think that it's something that's commonly practiced, and I also think that in the sort of like to the extent that they're not going to render successful outcomes, especially if it involves children in any capacity. I think that when it comes to children, monogamy and nuclear families render the best outcomes, and that does have a lot to do with evolution. It has a lot to do with obviously, living in in this economy. Sorry.
I would agree with the second thing you said. I think you get better outcomes for children when you have like one mom, one dad. Yeah, 100%. It's probably better than having like fucking 5 moms.
Can you inform me what exactly is the argument that you and TFM are putting out? What is the harem argument?
I don't even know. We kind of got derailed, but
shit. Then what are we talking about?
It's the idea that like women ideally would gravitate towards these relationships where there's like 2 or 3 women with like one successful guy.
No, not exactly, Destiny. I think some women would.
But that's not
okay.
true.
Hold on, wait. When you say some women, though, because because I would agree with you when you say some women, but when I say some women, I'm thinking like 0.1%. But it sounds like when you guys say some women, you're thinking like 45%.
No, I'm thinking like. Again, I don't have an exact percentage, but I'm thinking like 5 to 20%.
Okay, 1 out of 5 women being okay with those types of relationships, I would say that's wild.
To me that's statistically, that would be a statistically relevant number. If you're talking about anything between 5 and 25%, that's something I'd have to like really look into. But I don't have to, because I know that it doesn't happen, because I know. And then what types of women would fall into these relationships, if you could describe, like, because it has to be a specific type of woman that we're talking about. It's not going to be like it. I know for a fact it wouldn't be like a highly educated woman that is just.
Well, I think you have to be careful, like, not to shame women who have like different like preferences and lifestyle choices.
No, I'm not shaming.
That's gaslighting. She was not shaming women.
you're qualifying the men who would engage in this lifestyle, and I want you to qualify the women who are more
they could really run the gamut. They could like look at the. I mean, if we look at, I don't know, like the Playboy buddies, right? What did they have in common? Well, they were all physically attractive. They were all on the younger side. That's about it. But they came from different cultures, different like fucking hair color, different everything, really.
Wait,
But,
let me jump in. Let me jump in. So you said from 5 to 20% of the women. Let's say, are you talking about 5 to 20% of the women in America? Are we talking about the women in America?
Yeah, in Western countries. I'm not saying that engaging. I'm saying that.
Let's talk about American women, because that's where we are. Well,
Yeah,
that's where I don't know where you're. Okay, American women. 5% of American women are fine with living in a relationship where there's one man that they are in a relationship with, and there are other women, and they are fine with living in that relationship long term with those other women being there.
So I think it's
that's a harem, right?
So I think for a period of time. I don't think they're going to do it for.
Oh, come on! Well, now we're qualifying.
Get him,
So when we
Destiny.
say,
Get him, Destiny.
No, well, because here's the issue. What you guys say. No, hold on. Okay. When I'm not here, what you guys say is, first, you say broadly, you go like, women generally hunt for greater resources. And like, it's very possible that multiple women will go towards one man if he has a lot of resources. Then when we qualify, it's like, okay, well, that's a low percentage. What's the low percentage? Well, 5 to 20. 20% is still a lot. Okay. So you think up to 20% of women would live in relationships with men with multiple other women where they all know about each other. Well, they would do it, but not for that long. Well, okay, well, that's not a relationship now. Like, how long then? For like 2 weeks? Because yeah, I could bring like 4 really attractive women and put in my apartment for 2 weeks, and then somebody's dying at the end probably. But like, yeah, but that's not relationships at that point. Right?
No,
like
I think for a few years, but I don't think they're going to do it for the rest of their life. I prefaced this earlier.
Years?
Hold on, wait. How can we say women that are so obsessed with like reproductive strategy and biological clocks would be willing to throw away a few years on a man and then just leave?
Because your brain chemistry changes as you get older. When I was in my 20s, all I wanted to do is fuck a bunch of girls. Now I have a girlfriend. Like,
well, but women are like, were having kids when they were like 14, 15 back in the day, right? Like,
but that's why I asked him to qualify the archetype of these, because like you can qualify the men and say, hey, this is what they're going to look like. This is their income bracket. This is the mentality they have. They're builders, they're providers, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to qualifying the women, you're saying, oh, well, it's a gambit. They can run from, the upper echelon to kind of, the average girl working at Wendy's. But based on what you're saying, that's not true. Because now if you're talking about their brains are developing and changing, they're probably starting, their frontal lobes are probably underdeveloped when they're getting into this relationship. So they're probably 18, 19, early 20s.
Well, yeah, I said earlier, I think they're on the younger side.
Okay, so then how is this even a conversation then?
Hey,
it's not a relationship.
Look up how many women there are over the age of 18 in the United States.
Wait, but because a girl is like 19 or 20, that doesn't count as a relationship? Like, I don't understand that logic.
You said that a girl that's not in the age, let's say 19, is willing to live, how many did you say, 5 years in a relationship like that where there are other women? Is that what you're saying?
I said like a few years, yeah.
No, I'm being like Destiny. How many years is a few?
Are they like 6 months?
I don't know. Let's just say like throw out like say 2 or 3 years.
All right,
I might be like limited, or maybe I'm like the ultimate like I've just never seen this stuff. But like a woman being like, I'm gonna date it. Okay, here actually no, hold on, no, I'm sorry. I'm a new Destiny. I've had a lot of problems with my community, and I'm being more assertive now. Okay, I do not believe that anybody ever would decide to date somebody for 3 years. Nobody makes that decision. You're either there for like a week or 2, or you're like hooking up and having fun, or you're there to try to build it for the long haul. I don't think anybody makes a decision like, I'm going to date this person for 2 or 3 years. Who does? That seems insane.
You don't decide up front you're going to date them for 2 or 3 years. I'm just saying that's how long you wind up dating them. I think when you go into it, you're like, oh, this could work for long term. And then 2 or 3 years in, the girl is like, yeah, I think I want something
Alex,
different.
That's the point.
I've had many relationships in my life that were like 2 or 3 years.
But
Destiny,
Alex,
that's such a great point.
That's the point, though. If you know that going into it, they are going to want something stable, secure, and long-term, until they realize that it's not sustainable because of his lifestyle and his promiscuity. That's the point that we're making. Like it doesn't make any sense at all. It's
so
not,
I'm agreeing.
And to be more specific, that means that their dating and mating strategies would have less to do with being with being with a man of that caliber. If that was all women were looking for, even that type of woman that you're characterizing, that archetype, then why would she leave? Why 2-3 years? Why not stay? Why doesn't it have the legs to go the distance?
Because
Like,
I agree with you earlier that I don't think this is like a stable long-term relationship that's like a lifetime type of thing. So I'm fully willing to like grant you that point.
But isn't
okay,
that
so
what a
then
harem
where
is?
does women
Isn't a
nature?
harem stable? Like the fact that you label this harem, this is like when black people talk about defund the police. This is such a bad name. The fact that you're calling this a harem argument it's the worst word in the world for your argument, because harems are supposed to be more stable. What you're talking about in America does not exist in a stable.
I feel like you're kind of like nitpicking my words here. I mean, like stable.
We called. What do you mean nitpicking your words? Now you sound like TFM. Like we're in a conversation. We're talking
I know,
about.
but I think you're smart enough to know that when like stable.
Oh, I'm smart enough. Oh, shit. The black guy is smart enough.
Oh, come on. You know,
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. But listen, don't be like TFM. Like your words mean something, right? If you say something out of your mouth, you red pill guys are always telling women.
Well, first of all, I'm not red pill.
Okay, you're not red pill. Okay, then I take that back. You guys who talk about men, the relationship between men and women, you guys always say that words matter because women just talk shit, right? And you guys are always like, words matter, words matter. And so when Destiny talks to TFM and it's like, wait, well, so what are you saying? Then TFM says, well, no, I'm not a good debater. I'm just talking. Well, that doesn't work. Or when Donovan Sharp says, oh, well, I'm not going to debate Destiny because he's a professional debater and I'm just tell the truth. No, that's not how men communicate. And so, Alex, when you call this the damn harem argument and I say, okay, well, let's look at a harem. Now you're saying, oh, well, you're nitpicking my words.
Yeah.
But you guys tell women that words matter.
Let me respond to that. Well, first of all, I've never said words matter. Like that's not something that's ever come out of my mouth.
I apologize. Maybe I have you. Maybe I
think you have me confused with like a red pill person, but
I do.
I'm more of like a pickup person. But anyway, going back to so I would consider for me a relationship that lasts 2 or 3 years to be a stable relationship. You may think that's not a stable relationship, right? You may view stable something that's 10 years or more, but I think it's pretty reasonable to say that something like, for example, my previous relationship lasted about 2 years. I would consider that a stable relationship.
Okay, so my point. My point is that you guys sort of underpinning the idea that female nature is driving women into these relationships when really it's just because they're young and they don't have the experience. And then the 2-3 years they spend with you gaining that experience and they realize this is not what they really want means that this whole female nature thing probably is like just nonsense.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like female nature. It just sounds like kids fucking around.
Right.
Well, I think there's different. When you're at a different point in your life, you want different things. Like when I was like in my early 20s.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you want to do kid things. That's why these relationships have a shelf life. That's why.
Well, I wouldn't call it like doing a kid thing. Like when you're in your early 20s, you're not like a kid. You're not like legally a child.
Well, in terms of relationships, in your early 20s, you're a kid. Maybe you've had one, maybe 2 serious relationships if you're like mid 20s.
But
yeah, and obviously I'm being hyperbolic, but your frontal lobe is underdeveloped. You're not like you wouldn't make the same decisions that you're making in your 30s that you made in your 20s.
Well, typically what happens with men and women as they get older, they typically go from being promiscuous to being more like relationship focused, right? For men, their testosterone slows down. For women, maybe like the biological clock is ticking or something like that. But yeah, I think that's pretty common that men and women experience. Right.
So then maybe we shouldn't. What is the female nature? And maybe I'm like I'm a woman. So what am I?
Well, first of all,
that means you wouldn't understand.
First of all,
no, Destiny, you're right. You're actually right because anything can be a female, right? Like, there's no real humanity.
Oh, Jesus!
So many can of worms. We opened up the trans can of worms, the racism can of worms.
No. Go. I listen. Help me understand what is female nature.
Sure. So first of all, we're not saying that. At least I can speak for myself because TFM and I actually don't completely agree on all these positions. But the way I see it is, I don't think this applies to everyone, but I think some women will want a man of high caliber, high status to the point where they're willing to sacrifice things like monogamy.
So that's
real quick. Can I ask on the flip side of that? Because I will agree with you with if the woman is going way out of her league. But my question to you is, do you acknowledge that men would do the same?
100%.
Okay. That like if you had like a really poor guy, but he had the chance to bang like a 24-year-old fucking Hollywood supermodel, if she was like, I'll date you, but I'm dating like 2 other guys too, you'd be like, oh, yeah, fuck it, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah, dude, 100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
so
Cool.
what's
That was
so is
Kevin
it
Federline,
female nature, or
married
is
Britney
it
Spears.
like so it's not
that's-
female nature?
That's why I never use the word female nature. That's one of the things I disagree with Rollo on, because he always talks about hypergamy as something exclusive to women. I always said that hypergamy is not just to women. It's like man and woman thing. Like we all want to level up in life. We just focus on different things. Women might focus more on like status versus men might focus more on like youth and beauty, right?
That's not hypergamy. Hypergamy is specifically status. It's a social status thing.
Okay,
wait, but real quick. The lead attorney said something really true earlier, that when we talk about things like status and whatever, or actually he said that all of us are constantly doing calculations for what's more valuable to us, but different people value different things.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I don't like it when people frame women as like, oh, women always date up and men always date down. No, people date equally. It just depends on what they value. So for instance, when we say women date up, they date up socioeconomically. But when we say men date down socioeconomically, sure, but that's because men oftentimes don't value that. So they don't see it as dating down, right? A guy that's making $200,000 a year that finds like the hottest fucking woman in the world who's ready to have kids and take out a house and is a banging awesome housewife and everything at 24, he's not thinking like, man, I'm dating down. He's like, I'm dating exactly where I should be. That's why I don't like the term like dating up and dating down, because I think it just depends on what we value.
Yeah, that's the problem that I have with these arguments. They become reductive, and it kind of sucks the humanity and the individuality out of the human species. Like, we're all different. Generally speaking, people date people who are similar to them. That is just that is a universal fact. You date people who are on your socioeconomic level, your academic level. Like, that's generally what people do. And it's like when a person deviates from that.
That's not true for men. No, the whole socioeconomic level, a lot of times that is so not true.
No,
I think when she says that, I think it's generally true in that like people are going to be in the same income brackets. Like women tend to prefer dating somebody wealthier, but it's really rare that like a woman earning $20,000 a year is dating like a millionaire, right? Like if you're a millionaire, you're probably dating a woman from like a wealthier family, I think is what she said.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the exception to the rule. As a general matter, people date within their own.
But that's because they're limited to that. If they could get better, they would.
Yeah, they would, of course. Yeah.
Well, that too, but also relationships. What the research actually supports is relationships with those kinds of disparities, whether it's academic or economic. Those relationships don't tend to work out because, again, you're dealing with people who are not going to have as much in common, who maybe don't have the same tenacity, the same drive, the same commonalities. So it's not just access; it's also sort of the position in life that these people are in, and the differences that can sometimes impede that relationship's ability to go the distance. It's not just access.
Yeah, but Annalisa, people make their partner choices not logically, but emotionally. So it's not like...
That's not true. If that was the case, then you would not see birth rates going down. You would not see marriage rates going down.
True. I was going to say marriage especially is usually predicated on economic success. It's one of the things that triggers me the most. I hate bringing up black stats, but like everybody that argues in talking about black people. I'm so sorry.
Do y'all talk about this when I'm not here? Jesus Christ.
Listen, okay? You might not know this, but like white people on the internet are like black researchers, okay? That's literally all we talk about is black people and what do we say the N-word, okay? That's literally it.
We're the canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah. So what the one I've had people in the past show me a chart. This is one of the reasons why I get triggered at charts. But they'll say something like, look at how much money black men earn when they're married versus black men earn when they're single. And they'll say black men that are married earn way more money and black men that are single earn way less money. Therefore, black men should get married because they'll earn more money. But it's not necessarily true. People make choices about marriage based on their economic situation. That's why every time we got like economic downturns and shit, you'll see those marriage rates drop. Or when economic anxiety rises, marriage rates drop. But yeah, people do make decently wise choices when it comes to marriage. Maybe not when it comes to knocking people up all the time and having kids, but in terms of like being married and having children in the context of family, I think those are like pretty reasonable decisions a lot of people make.
Well, you at
Wait,
least
wait,
acknowledge
wait.
the
I thought
attraction is
Alex. I thought
emotional.
Alex was making the position that people get married for emotional reasons. And Destiny, are you saying that that's not true?
That isn't true.
I think that, I mean, they can, like, there's going to be emotion stuff that goes into it, but there's a lot of like reasonable and rational stuff that goes into it as well.
Okay, so you're saying
Marriage,
some.
marriage is
It's
an
not one or the
economic
other.
proposition.
It's not
It
one
has
or the
nothing.
other.
It has very little to do with emotional output or
And
how.
Alicia, you're
Or
so wrong. And just that you might not know who I am, but I'm a 20-year divorce attorney. So I know a little bit about marriages and divorces. And I can tell you, at least from the man's side, that men are not looking to get married for economic reasons.
That's
I
not
mean,
what
that's
I'm saying. And I'm not saying, I'm not, what this is what I'm saying. He just said that people get into relationships based on feelings. And I'm telling you that based on the social or economic environment, those things and those variables change. People who are educated and who obviously have an understanding of capitalism or if we're in a recession, they're going to make smart decisions. And sometimes that means, okay, maybe I'm not going to have a baby right now. Okay, which means maybe I don't need to get married right now. So those things, we can wait to do those things. People are not going to rush into marriage when there is social or economic, like he said, anxieties. They're just not going to do it. It doesn't matter how much they love
yeah,
someone.
no. Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here because I can tell when I'm talking to a person who's basing their knowledge on theory, right? When you say that people, what did you say? And I wrote this down. People are going to make smart decisions. You have no idea what the regular population is doing when they get married. It's so not true.
I'm
And
speaking to the lowered birth rates and marriage rates. So I'm not talking about theory. I'm actually talking about something that's statistically
listen,
provable.
Glenn, I don't know. I don't care what you're referring to. You're talking about marriage birth rates.
I'm talking about marriage, the rate at which people are marrying, which is lower in every community among every race, and birth rates. So I'm not talking about theory.
How does
This
birth
is practice
rates?
that I'm talking about practice.
How does birth rates relate to your quote that people are going to make good decisions?
You're talking about people getting into relationships because of the way that they feel, and they're getting married because of the way that they feel. And I'm telling you, I'm pointing to data that is saying people are not getting married as much. People are not having as many babies. And I'm only speaking to Alex's point. Like, I'm not speaking Japanese.
Okay, Annalisa.
No, you're just not speaking logically. That's why I'm not following you. And you might not know who I
That's kind
am,
of
but
what you
again,
are.
I mean, my whole adult career has been based on listening to people's arguments, right? So I'm pretty good at it. And
Okay,
I'm
so
telling
you don't understand the argument that people are not exclusively getting into relationships or getting married because of the way that they feel?
when
Well, I
you
never
say
said-
exclusively,
I never
now
said
you're adding a word.
No,
But I
that's
will-
what Alex said. Alex
No,
didn't
I never-
differentiate.
Alex never
didn't
said
qualify anything
exclusively.
else.
No,
Alex
no.
said,
Alex
well,
never
people
said
are
exclusively.
getting
You
into
said that.
relationships based on emotion. That's what he said. Rewind the tape.
He
Yes,
didn't say exclusively.
I
You
didn't say
added that.
exclusively. It means
Now,
primarily emotional, but of course
Okay,
there's a little
right.
bit of logic.
Primary,
But-
secondary, fiduciary, whatever it is. I'm saying that
Listen.
if it was just emotion, anybody could get married. I'm telling you, it's not happening like that.
And
for a
Alicia,
reason.
do you think that when people haven't eaten in a while and they get hungry and they want to eat because they're hungry, do you think that hunger is an emotion that's driving them to eat? Is that an emotion?
You're muted, Annalisa.
Sorry, what's the? Is this an analogy?
No, this is a question. The question is the question is when people haven't eaten in a while and they get hungry, they have a biological desire to eat. That feeling in them, that hunger feeling, and they eat. Is that feeling an emotion?
It's a biological imperative. It's an
Yes,
imperative.
it's a yes or no question. Honestly, is the hunger a feeling?
Yeah.
Okay. What Alex I think is saying is that people get married for feelings, right? So some of that is love. Some of that, oh, I really love this woman. She's got nice areolas. I want to keep them around. Some people get married because, hey, he has $186 million, right? And I'm Anna Nicole Smith. Maybe I can use that money. Maybe I really want resources. That's a feeling. Right? When Alex is saying that people get married because of feelings, he's exactly right. You're talking about birth rates. I have no idea how that relates.
I was talking about marriage. So marriage rates are going up. Like, why you're focusing on something?
I'm focusing on what you
I
said.
Right,
I'm
but I
focusing
also
on
said
what
marriage rates, and we're talking about marriage.
We're talking about people. the proposition that was on the table was were people getting married because of feelings.
No, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. Okay, Destiny,
Alex,
can you rewind the tape,
Alex,
please?
yes, please rewind
I'm
the
not
tape.
gonna be
I've been
gaslit.
doing this
I
for
don't
so
care.
many years. Like I
Okay,
can
hold on.
hear.
I think hold on. I think you guys maybe agree, but we're just in a weird world right now. Okay, people obviously get married because there's some feeling involved. It's not. Anna, you might have used the term business proposition. It's not just a business proposition, right? People
I didn't say that though.
Okay, maybe you didn't. My bad. I'm sorry. Right, but like when people get married, it's because there's feelings there. But the decision to get married is also going to be spurred on by like economic opportunity. So, for instance, like when a man and a woman, or we'll say when a boy and a girl, okay, 19-year-old boy and 19-year-old girl, when they decide to live with one another because they love each other, there's going to be like an amount of love there because they want to live together. But there's also going to have to be some economic impetus too. Like they both have to have jobs, for instance, right? If they want to go out and get an apartment together. So the love is there, but it's also like economically related as well, right?
Marriage is absolutely an economic proposition on both ends.
Jesus,
that's what I'm saying. And I wasn't saying that people.
I think it's predominantly an emotional decision.
Like, what is your background in, Elisa? Like,
sorry, you said it's predominantly an emotional decision. Marriage, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. I disagree with that.
He's 100% right. Alex is 100% right. Especially from the man's side, but even from the woman's side, because this is what Destiny was talking about, referring to what I was talking about. Humans are, you can define a human as a cost benefit analysis machine. All right. But once the machine analyzes the factors and the considerations for the cost benefit analysis, it comes out with a result. Say, hey, I should do this or I should not do this. What is this result? What's the characteristic of this result? It is an emotion. It's an emotion.
So
wait, let me finish. So if a person hasn't eaten in a while and they have a biological desire to eat, the person feels the emotion of hunger. If you haven't drunk any water in a while, you have an emotional urge to drink, right? And men have had and women too, right? But let's think about men for a second. Men have emotions for love, for legacy, for creating a family. These are emotions. And when men act on these emotions, they get married. For you to say, no, it's not an emotion, for you to like take it one notch back and just say it's a business, it's totally unrelated to reality.
Right, but that's not what I said. I said that marriage, among many other things, including love, including emotions, is
including emotions now. Okay, we're including emotions.
Wait, real quick. Wait, hold on. No, because I think we agree. Okay, there's a term called necessary but not sufficient. Okay, emotions are necessary but not sufficient for a marriage. Economics are necessary but not sufficient for a marriage. You need like both of these things generally.
That's what I'm saying, and and my point. Just so that I'm clearly understood here. While I understand that marriages are, well, I guess he's saying that they're predominantly initiated because of feelings and because of love.
Wait, no. He's just saying that that's a necessary component. That it's not that people need to be in love with each other generally, probably to get married.
No. I'm saying that no, she's right. I'm saying that marriage is primarily an emotional decision, because I will say this: if it was a logical decision, the vast majority of men would not even get married.
No, wait, hold on. Wait. This isn't even an argument we're having. You're completely wrong, because you can absolutely watch marriage rates change depending on like economic status, economic anxiety. Like it tracks so hard. Unless you think that like less people fall in love when there are recessions.
The whole time, Destiny.
Right? Yeah. Oh no, I understand. But
absolutely
right.
I mean, again, is it a correlation or causation thing? Like, is it like when there's an economic recession, maybe people take more jobs, they have less time to date. Maybe like I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
again,
this
is my, that's exactly what I was saying. I guess, okay, I didn't make myself clear, but I will also argue that people who exclusively marry or date based on the way that they feel and negating the economic elements, those relationships I think are destined to fail. And you see that in the Black community, where Black women are marrying down, and these relationships are their train wrecks.
Okay, I have a question for you, Annalisa. Do you think attraction, let's just dial it back. Do you think attraction is logical or emotional primarily?
I think it's both, to be honest.
Wow.
Both. So you think it's both. So for example, you think like if I show up on a date and like I just start telling the girl while I'm like cool, like, yeah, I make a lot of money, I'm good in bed, I have a big dick, like that will like do something for her, like she will be attracted to me.
I wouldn't. I don't know what she would do.
Right. It would turn her off because that's an emotional turn off because I'm bragging. Attraction,
right? But
is
also logically,
emotional.
like if I think about it logically, like it's not emotion. That's logic. I'm like, she's using logic to turn you down, not emotion.
Well, if it was logical, then the people who are the smartest would have better success dating.
That's not true.
That's not necessarily.
No, that's necessarily true.
The people who are best at logic, let me rephrase that, would be better.
Well, because it might be that like the people that are the best at logic like
are socially awkward. Maybe they're socially inept. There are other variables that you have to consider. Like, it's not. I'm not sure what your IQ has to do with. What are you talking? Like, you're talking about attraction.
The point I'm trying to make is that attraction is almost entirely emotional. It's how you make a girl feel. That will determine whether she's going to call you back or not. Well, it's not some logical thing. She's not sitting at home and thinking, yeah, this guy's pretty good on paper, so I'm going to go on second date.
No, how are you speaking on behalf of women? Women, there are people, not just women, there are people who consciously make decisions and who actually think before they get into a relationship, regardless of the way a person looks.
Well, like, I think that it's a really hard one too, because I think like some of these things are going to run together, right? Like logic and emotion.
I do think there's
That's
a little
why
bit
I said it's both earlier.
Because like let's say that you tell a girl that like I work at like a big company, like, and I make a lot of money. Like you can say like somebody might argue like, well, emotionally she's attracted to a man with resources, but like logically she's probably like, oh, cool, like my future will be like pretty secure. Like I feel safe with this guy because he's like driven. Like, but is that like an emotion or is that
logic?
He's gonna actually be turned off because it's gonna seem like you're bragging if you do it in a braggadocious way.
No, I know if you do bragging, but I'm just saying like just knowing that fact to say whether or not is that like logical or emotional is. I mean, like they feed into each other.
Right? I'm not sure how you're going to be able to.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I do think it's more of like a feeling the girl will get. It's like, ooh, like it's just
right.
Like
but see, Alex, the problem that I have with you is you're
okay.
Not with you. Sorry, not with you, Alex.
No, with him. With him.
No, with him. Yeah, stay on it. Stay on it, Annalisa. Stay on it.
Don't let him up. The problem that I have is,
okay, Alex.
You seem to like. It's a lot of impulse. Like a lot of like people are making decisions based on how they feel and what they're feeling, how it makes them, and like what you get to a certain age, i.e. an adult, and you have responsibilities and you want to sort of map out your future, you're fiscally, socially, whatever it is, you don't really operate from a place of impulsivity. You're operating from a place of pragmatism and logic. And so like you're describing women who are like, oh, he makes me feel like that. Yeah, I remember like coming across guys who made me feel like, ooh, but I was like 18. I was like 19, 20, like again. So I feel like you're describing a type of woman, but a very young, like
I'm describing no. I'm describing men too. I think human beings in general. I think this is a lie. A lot of people tell themselves it's like, oh, I'm a very logical person. I go through life operating on logic. In reality, that's not the case.
That's me.
I think the majority of people make emotional decisions.
And do you think that making a decision from a place of emotion is more advantageous than making it from a place of logic and reason?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that's my point, right? So that's what I'm saying. As you get older, you understand the importance of making decisions based on logic, based on being dogmatic and pragmatic versus how something makes you feel. So the idea that you have this really rigid way of seeing women and the reason that they make these decisions, and it's always sort of connected or based in impulsivity. That's not really the way that it works in the real world. In the real world, women are still in the real world, Alex, when women are dating, they're absolutely employing logic. I promise you they are employing logic.
Okay, you keep tying this back to like a woman only thing, but I've never said that. Like I think men and women make very emotional decisions as they navigate through life. Is it true that as people get older, they're a little bit less impulsive and emotional, a little bit more logical? Sure. But I still think, especially when it comes to dating, something like dating, we primarily make emotional decisions.
Okay, well, we can agree to disagree. I think that when you're younger, and you're more impulsive and you have less responsibilities and therefore less consequences that are tied to your impulsivity, I think that, yeah, sure, people are more inclined to make impulsive decisions, whether it's, who they're dating, whether it's who they're mating, whatever it is. I can agree with you. But I think that as a general rule, I think that as we get older and as responsibilities pile up and living in the real world, I think we get older and we appreciate the importance of employing logic, reason, and pragmatism
We
versus
appreciate,
emotions.
we appreciate it, but we typically don't do it. I think you have a much more
Well,
optimistic.
if you don't do it, then for
No,
the people
Okay,
who
you guys,
don't,
hold on.
for
You
the
guys
people
are
who
arguing,
don't
but
do
you
it,
guys
I would
truly,
like
you
to
guys
see where
can't,
they are
you
in
can't,
life.
you guys cannot disagree with each other here. Okay, you obviously agree, right? But like, people are going to employ some level of logic when it comes to determining who they're going to date, right? Like, even the hottest guy in the world, if you meet him and then like a friend contacts you, like, hey, just so you know, that dude's like a child sex offender, probably gonna be like, oh, okay, fuck, maybe not the best idea in the world, right? But Anna, you've got to admit, there are people that are like that. That see the Pookie and Ray Rays and they get taken and like, oh fuck, yeah, I guess, oh, this guy's charming, he's cute, he's whatever, blah blah blah, and they make dumb decisions. Like, this happens, right?
No,
Even
but
into your 30s, like people
my
make dumb
point,
decisions sometimes, right?
Stephen, my point is making those decisions that if you're making it from a place of emotionality, you're probably going to make the wrong decision. That's my point.
Oh,
Sure.
okay. Well, that's something different. Sure. I
no
don't know
one's
if anybody
disagreeing
would
with
disagree with that. Yeah.
When you make
Right.
decisions from logic, if you're talking about getting married, you're probably going to make the wrong decision. Right? That's the thing. Making a logical decision does not ensure, it doesn't even get you like even close to a guarantee of success.
Well, first of all, nothing's going to give you a guarantee.
I said not
for
even
anything in
close.
life.
No, please listen to me. I said not even close to a
Right.
guarantee. Like
but you're more likely. You're more I don't even know. I'm not even gonna have this argument. You are more likely to succeed if you employ logic in any situation versus employing how something makes you feel and running from that impulsive or running with the impulsive.
The issue that you're not taking into consideration is that when you say logic, you're just thinking about this like this just grand this scheme that someone can just tap into and use. And what I'm telling you is that people have different backgrounds, they have different mental capacities. Their use of logic is so many times, the vast majority of times, is going to contain flaws. It's going to contain errors. So when you say, oh, these people are just using logic or need to use logic with this capital L, I'm telling you, in almost all cases, this logic with the capital L that you're referring to, it does not exist. It does not exist.
I'm going to say that even with varying mental capacities, even with varying intellectual capacities, I'm going to say, and obviously when we're talking about logic, we're talking about logic that's based on whatever situation, based on the person. There's no objective way to employ logic, obviously. But what I'm saying is you're going to have a better outcome if you employ logic, whatever that might be for that person, whatever their intellectual capacity or output is. You're going to have more success if you employ logic versus I'm going to do this because it feels good.
I agree with you, Annalisa.
I think
that's a different argument.
That is logic.
I think we all agree here. I don't know what we're arguing, right?
Yeah,
it's them. Like
no. That's a totally different argument. No one's disagreeing with that. I will say one last point on this. Maybe this will kind of I don't know, this analogy will kind of drive the point home. Okay, do you think eating fast food every day is a good logical decision, Annalisa?
No.
Okay, then why do 1 out of 3 American adults eat fast food daily?
That wasn't a good one.
Well, hold on. Why is it not a good one? There's an emotion and there's a behavior, and I think we can analyze all of it as being illogical, but people do it consistently and they follow through with it on a daily basis, right?
Well, if we're going to get into that, then we're going to have to get into addiction, and we're going to have to get into dopamine, and we're going to have to get into all of those things.
Yeah, addiction and dopamine and attachment styles and past abuse, ACEs, adverse child experiences.
Exactly.
Like there's all sorts of things. But no, I'm just saying that like all of these things, everything that might impact like fast food could theoretically impact relationship decisions as well, right?
Correct. And this is my point when Annalisa just wants to say, oh, well, just use logic. It's logical. It's like the situation is so much more complex than she understands.
Okay, so don't use logic then.
No one's saying that.
Jesus Christ.
You think you all agree with each other? You guys are all just using the.
No, I
fucking-
think there is a disagreement.
I haven't really deviated. My position has
I
always
think,
been
Destiny,
that
I think there is an agreement
that marriage, in addition to many other things, is an economic proposition. But that's really all I've said. I've said that when people make decisions based purely on emotion.
So
and
men, is marriage primarily an economic proposition for men?
As generally speaking, I think yes.
Can you wait before we attack that? What do you mean when you say that? When you say primarily an economic proposition, what do you mean by that?
You talking to me or her? Because I'm basically just quoting her.
Yeah, I know what your point is. I'm curious what do you mean by that, Anna? That do you mean that like men are thinking I'm going to share my?
I mean that men are men of a certain socioeconomic bracket are more likely to when they're thinking or when they're looking at a woman that they want to marry. I think they're looking at where she is in life academically and where she is in life financially.
No. That's
okay. I'm like super not red pill on anything, but I don't think that's generally true.
Correct. She has no visibility on men and what men want, just none at all.
I'll give you another analogy, Annalisa. Maybe you'll like this one more. Obviously, we all know that drinking soda is not a good logical decision. Yet 63% of adults in America drink soda daily. Why is that? Because it makes them feel good. They're not making logical decision to drink soda because we all know it's bad for you. They're making an emotional decision. We are emotional.
Alex, but that's identical to your last point.
I never disagreed with you. We agree that making decisions because of the way something makes you feel. We agree. I said that. I think
we agree.
Alex, listen, you're letting her off the hook because this argument is the same thing that your argument about the hamburgers. It's identical. The argument that's on the table.
No, but I didn't disagree with it in the first place.
You're right, Annalisa.
My position was making decisions purely from a place of emotion is problematic. That's what I said.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that Alex is deviating the conversation because all the men know up here that what Annalisa just said about the men entering into marriages primarily.
No, not primarily. I'm not primarily.
Oh my God! Didn't you?
Okay, I just want to be clear. Because that was my question earlier.
Exactly,
you did say primarily. You said primarily.
Sorry. No.
Okay.
Men, I don't think that they're making it primarily, but I think that it is something that they look at. I don't think it's something that they disregard.
Well, that's a different proposition.
That's an entirely different proposition.
Okay, well, that's my proposition. I'm allowed to change it.
It keeps changing. Jesus Christ! It's like, what are we talking about? If your proposition is going to keep changing.
Yeah, what do you mean keep changing? That's the first time it changed. If you don't understand what I'm saying, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, you keep changing it. That's what Destiny was saying.
I don't think that men disregard finances and a woman's social position in society. I don't think that they disregard it. I do not believe that they do, especially men who are sort of like the higher socioeconomically.
Yeah.
They do not do that.
That's probably true, Anna. But my guess is going to be it's not something that people actually think about. It just kind of happens,
right? But it doesn't just happen because it's part of the way that they're socialized, right?
Yeah, but that's what I mean when I say it just. Well, that's what I mean when I say it just happens. Like people don't think about it. Like people don't tend to date in the same age and in the same race and in the same everything because they're like trying to find people like that. That's just kind of who they're around. That's who they're socialized around, right?
Right, but how is that different than what I'm saying? When I'm saying, they're thinking about it to the extent that they're less likely to date somebody outside of that circle.
Okay, I don't know if any of us disagree on anything.
Yeah, Annalisa, you made two propositions, right? And one of the propositions we all agree with you on. The proposition we all agree with you on is that it's better to use logic instead of emotions. We all agree with you on that. The first proposition is the one that we had disagreement on, and that's the one you kind of revise your position on, and that's fine. You're allowed to change your position, which is that, men and women and just people in general operate primarily through logic, and that's the one that I'm trying to prove to you that.
No, I didn't say that they do. I said that they. I said that they should. I didn't say that they do. I said that they should.
You. Okay.
Okay. Well, because it sounded earlier like you were arguing like no people like for.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay. I
heard you.
Now. Yeah. We're all caught up now. We're all on the same page.
So wait, I said that people mainly. So
she doesn't even remember what she's saying. That's the issue. Like it's all moving.
Okay. So wait a minute. So I said that people make date. Oh no, you're right. I did. because
Oh,
you
God.
said that women are making decisions about who they date based on how they feel, and I'm saying that no, like there are checks and balances. Women want to look at your history. Women are going to employ logic before they get into a serious relationship with you. That is what I said. And I said to the extent that women employ logic in those types of situations, that sort of determines how successful their relationships will be versus making decisions based purely on how they feel.
Okay, well,
That's what I feel like that's what I've been saying the whole time. I don't know.
your proposition has changed, in all honesty.
I don't feel like it has.
I'd just say just watch it back, and you can decide.
Yeah,
for
no,
yourself.
I'm definitely gonna watch it back. But yeah.
But
But
okay,
Alex,
cool.
we kind of got off the point where I asked you to sort of define female nature, and I'm not sure if you did.
Also, just as a heads up for you guys, so it doesn't feel like I'm bailing, I've got to leave in like 10 minutes. Like I can't.
Yeah, I got
my sleep schedule for other shit.
Yeah, with the whole moving of the goalposts, I think I'm going to dip out. But listen, thank you so much for pulling me up, Destiny and Alex. Really appreciate it. Nice to meet you, and Alicia. At any time you guys want to talk about marriage and divorce, that's a good person to refer to. I know Destiny likes his little statistics and reports, all that. That's good. But if you really want some information for people in the trenches, you guys can always hit me up. All right.
Yeah,
dude. Thank you again.
Steven, did he tell you?
I would actually like to discuss all that because I think that's something my audience is curious about.
Steven, did he talk about men getting screwed? Did you guys have that conversation already?
And Alicia, I'm totally down to set up like a debate or convo with you like another time. We're like 4 hours deep right now, so I feel like if we open up this can of worms, like we're just gonna.
Oh yeah, no, I'm here. But Steven, did you guys have that conversation or no?
I'll have Destiny put us in touch.
We did indeed have that conversation, yeah.
Oh, did he? And what did you learn?
It's all the talking points you love. That's what I brought you here for earlier, but we didn't have time tonight, but next time, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about men getting screwed, there's nobody on YouTube that knows it better than me.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sure.
But
I like how initially the point of this was for Destiny to debate TFM, and TFM is not even here anymore. He went through like a 30-minute stretch where he didn't say a word, and he's just like, okay, fuck this. He just dipped.
Well,
all right, but listen, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet all of y'all.
Yeah, have a good one.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, cool. That was fun. Yeah, I'll catch you later, Destiny.
Okay, I love you, buddy. Be careful, okay? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Always a pleasure.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, Annalisa. All right, guys.
Bye, nice to meet you.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get you on again. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We're gonna do another one of these. We're gonna do another debate, I think, later on in the week, and then we'll do speed dating stream probably sometime in the week. So stay tuned. Check out my channel. Check out TFM's channel. Check out Destiny's channel. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night.